Virginia's rolling hills and scenic landscapes hide secrets most travelers never see. Atop these hills, small towns sit in silence, watching the valleys below. Once filled with life, laughter, and commerce, many of these towns now carry shadows. Shadows of the past. Shadows of tragedy. Locals whisper of unexplained noises at night. Footsteps echo through empty streets. Doors creak in abandoned homes with no wind. Lanterns flicker in windows long since boarded. Figures appear in the foggy mornings, vanishing when approached. Some who visit these hilltop towns at night report hearing whispers from the hills themselves. Others claim to have seen spectral figures wandering cemeteries, graveyards, and abandoned streets. The air grows thick with unease, and the hills seem to watch your every move. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted hilltop towns in Virginia. Towns covered in dark history. Towns where spirits of the past refuse to rest. Step lightly. The hills remember every visitor, and some may never let you leave. Hello, my friend. Tonight, I welcome you to Virginia's most haunted hilltop towns. These towns may appear peaceful under sunlight, but when darkness falls, their histories whisper through the streets, alleys, and hillsides. From abandoned houses to forgotten cemeteries, from old churches to neglected battlefields, the spirits linger. Locals have reported doors slamming on their own, figures in foggy streets, and sudden cold gusts that seem to follow visitors. Some hear mournful cries echoing downhill roads. Others see ghostly apparitions staring silently from windows. Before we wander these haunted hilltops, I have a question for you. If you were alone in a town atop a foggy hill, and you saw a shadow moving through a deserted street, would you follow it to uncover the secret? Or would you turn back, fearing the spirits watching you? These hills remember every footstep. Your courage or your fear will shape your journey tonight. May you tread lightly, and may the spirits reveal only what you are ready to see. Black Hollow Hill rises silently above surrounding countryside, its slopes shrouded in dense, rolling fog. The town that rests at its base is perpetually cloaked in mist, giving every street and alley a sense of isolation and mystery. The air is thick with moisture, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, while shadows seem to linger longer than they should, stretching and twisting with the flickering of faint streetlights. Shadows seem to linger longer than they should, stretching and twisting with the flickering of faint streetlights. Visitors who arrive in the town immediately feel the weight of its quiet, a stillness that is broken only by the occasional rustle of branches or the distant call of an unseen bird. Yet beneath the natural sounds, there is something more, a subtle layer of murmurs that seems to drift from the fog itself. These are not the ordinary noises of an empty street, but the soft echoes of voices, calling out just beyond comprehension. As night descends, the fog thickens, rolling down hillsides and weaving through narrow alleys and abandoned streets. Figures begin to appear, emerging from the mist with deliberate movement. They do not speak or approach directly, yet the sense of being watched is immediate and undeniable. Their eyes, though indistinct, seem to follow every movement, observing without judgment, creating a tension that grips even the most curious visitor. The alleys of Black Hollow Hill are the most active zones for these apparitions. Shadows shift at the edges of vision, and faint footsteps echo along cobblestone paths where no one is present. Visitors report the sensation of a presence beside them, walking in rhythm with their own steps, only to vanish when they turn to look. The fog acts as both concealment and stage, hiding figures until the very last moment, and revealing them in sudden glimpses that leave the heart racing. Mournful cries often pierce the night, carried on the wind as though the hill itself is lamenting. These sounds are not constant, but appear sporadically, rising from abandoned homes, empty lots, or the forested edges of town. Some hear multiple voices, overlapping and echoing, a chorus of sorrow that seems to mourn the passage of time and the lives long forgotten. Even those who enter the town expecting a quiet evening find themselves pausing, straining to locate the source, yet always remains just out of reach, lingering in the fog like a memory refusing to fade. The streets themselves hold the remnants of the town's history. Weathered facades and shuttered windows suggest lives interrupted, stories incomplete, as the fog curls around corners and drifts through empty courtyards. It creates the illusion that the town is larger than it truly is, with hidden pathways and secret courtyards appearing only to those who move with caution and attentiveness. Figures are glimpsed peering from behind doors, or standing motionless at intersections, disappearing when approached, leaving only the sense that the town remembers each visitor. Time seems to behave differently here. Hours stretch and contract in ways that unsettle the senses. A simple walk from one end of the town to the other can feel like a journey through decades, with each building and alley echoing the footsteps of those who have walked before. Lanterns glow faintly in deserted streets, their light reflecting off wet pavement in the fog, creating an atmosphere where reality and memory intertwine. Every creak of a signpost or shiver of wind feels purposeful, as though the town itself is conscious of its observers. Visitors who explore deeper into the outskirts encounter abandoned houses and crumbling fences, each overgrown with vines and moss. The fog here is heavier, almost tactile, curling around legs and arms like a living thing. Shapes emerge intermittently, sometimes appearing as solitary figures at the edge of vision, other times clustering in small groups that vanish without warning. Some travelers report feeling cold breaths on the back of their neck, the subtle touch of unseen hands, or the weight of presence pressing from the fog itself. The forested areas surrounding Black Hollow Hill are equally active. Twisted trees and thick undergrowth conceal movement, and the cries of the lost seem louder here. Figures drift between the trunks, appearing only briefly before, melting into shadows. The natural sounds of the forest of the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs under fuda, blend with these eerie noises, creating a soundscape that disorients and captivates simultaneously. Visitors are drawn forward, compelled to continue despite the unease that grows with every step. Even during the day, the town carries an air of unease. The fog may be lighter, but the shadows are longer, the alleys deeper, and the sense of being watched persists. Every corner, every turning, feels like it holds a secret, and the faint echoes of cries and whispers remind visitors that the history of Black Hollow Hill is never fully at rest. As night deepens, the full haunting asserts itself. Lanterns glow in deserted streets, shadows lengthen, and the cries rise and fall in haunting cadence. Figures move with deliberate slowness, observing, guiding, and perhaps warning. Some travelers feel compelled to leave, yet are drawn onward, unable to resist the allure of the hill and the town that refuses to release them from its fog. The town's fog clings to everything, refusing to let go, like a shroud of death that cannot be shaken. Black Hollow Hill is a place where the living and the echoes of the past converge. Figures appear silently, mournful cries resonate through empty streets, and whispers call out from the fog, carrying memories of those who have walked these paths before. The town itself becomes a living entity, attentive, patient, and aware. Every visitor is watched, every footstep recorded in the silent memory of the hill. This is a place where history and haunting exist in parallel, where fog and shadow reveal what the eyes cannot fully comprehend. Black Hollow Hill endures as a testament to memory, presence, and mystery. Those who walk its streets experience a town alive with echoes, a hill guarding its secrets, and a haunting that lingers long after departure, as though the fog itself carries the story of every soul who has ever dared to tread its paths. The hilltops of Raven Ridge rise sharply against the horizon, their slopes dotted with abandoned homes, whose wooden frames groan with age and neglect. Roofs sag and paint peels, revealing the slow decay of years untouched by care. The roads wind precariously between these remnants of human habitation, curving and bending as if hesitant to reveal all that lies beyond. As night falls, a thin fog drifts along the hills, settling over empty yards and cracked pathways. Lanterns flicker faintly in windows that have long been deserted, casting soft, irregular glows that dance across broken panes. The light is intermittent, sometimes appearing as a steady flame, other times as a subtle pulse, suggesting the presence of life where none should be. Travelers along the winding roads often notice shadows that seem to move independently. They appear at the edge of vision, just beyond the periphery, and vanish when directly observed. Some describe a sensation of being followed, the unmistakable feeling that another presence mirrors every step along the hill, silent yet perceptible. The abandoned homes themselves hold an eerie quiet. Doors hang ajar on rusted hinges, creaking softly in the wind. Windows stare blankly into the night, dark eyes reflecting nothing yet suggesting everything. Faded curtains flutter and torn screens sway, creating shapes that at a glance could be mistaken for figures moving within. The decay of these structures is subtle, slow, and persistent, each detail reinforcing the impression that the hill remembers those who once lived there. Lantern light often illuminates unexpected corners. A faint glow inside a house may reveal a staircase, a piece of furniture, or the faint outline of what could be a person. The effect is fleeting, as if the home itself breathes a memory into the night, offering a glimpse of its former life before retreating into shadow. Observers are left with the impression of watching a world suspended in time, caught between presence and absence. The roads that wind through Raven Ridge are narrow and uneven. Grass and weeds creep along the edges, softening the boundaries between road and hillside. Some feel invisible eyes upon them, a pressure that moves with them, always slightly behind or beside, never confronting, only observing. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, a mix of quiet and subtle motion. Trees lining the hills sway gently, casting long, shifting shadows that merge with the silhouettes of the abandoned homes. Every sound, from the rustle of leaves to the soft groan of wood, becomes amplified in the stillness. Even a distant animal call carries a weight, blending with the ambient tension to create a profound sense of presence throughout the landscape. Figures occasionally appear along the roadside, pale and fleeting. They are indistinct at first, standing motionless as if waiting, only to dissolve into the fog when approached. They do not move aggressively or interact directly, yet their existence is undeniable. These encounters leave visitors with the subtle impression that Raven Ridge is alive, quietly monitoring those who traverse its slopes and remembering its past inhabitants. Lanterns continue to flicker unpredictably, guiding the eye toward homes and hilltops, illuminating the uneven terrain in ways that reveal and conceal simultaneously. Shadows twist and stretch across broken fences, collapsed porches, and scattered debris. Every glance along a path could reveal a figure just beyond recognition, fleeting and ethereal, leaving the mind to interpret what is seen in the darkness. Time feels altered on the hills. Moments stretch and compress, leaving travelers uncertain of how long they have been moving along the winding roads. The combination of fog, shadow, and faint light creates an immersive environment that blurs the distinction between past and present, between memory and immediate experience. Each step is laden with anticipation, every turn in the road offering potential for new, subtle encounters. Even the air seems charged with memory, and reinforcing the presence of something beyond the visible, yet enough to heighten awareness and deepen the sense of being observed. By the time travelers descend from the hilltops, the impression of Raven Ridge remains vivid. The fleeting figures, the subtle pressures, and Chilsa all linger in memory. The abandoned homes and winding roads form a landscape where presence and absence coexist, where the past imprints itself on the present in quiet, persistent ways. Raven Ridge exists as a testament to time, memory, and subtle mystery. Its empty homes, shadowed hills, and flickering lights offer glimpses of life that once was, leaving those who visit with a heightened sense of awareness, a lingering fascination, and the realization that some places, though silent and abandoned, continue to hold echoes of those who came before. Misty Knoll rests quietly beneath a blanket of fog, a town cradled among rolling hills and ancient cemeteries. The air is thick with moisture, carrying the scent of earth and the faint decay of forgotten graves. As daylight fades, the landscape transforms, shadows stretching long and mist curling through gravestones like tendrils of memory and sorrow. Walking through the narrow streets, the town feels suspended between the living and the dead. Cemeteries encircle the outskirts, their iron gates rusted and leaning, headstones cracked and weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Each marker tells a story, some names barely legible, others etched with care and reverence. Among these stones, spectral figures have been seen drifting silently, moving with a purpose that is never clear. Visitors describe the figures as translucent shapes, glimpsed at the edge of vision. They appear to wander among the gravestones, pausing occasionally, turning their unseen gaze toward those who walk the paths. Some move with slow, deliberate steps, while others glide, seeming to float above the ground. Their presence is subtle yet undeniable, an atmosphere that presses against the senses and invites both curiosity and caution. Footsteps echo through the empty streets and between the rows of graves, often without origin. The sound is light yet precise, measured, as if someone walks just behind or beside, matching the pace of the visitor. Turning quickly reveals nothing but the swaying mist and shadowed monuments. The effect is disorienting, creating a sense that the town itself is alive, responding to movement and presence with its own rhythm of sound and silence. The fog enhances the sensation of unease. Gravestones emerge from the mist like ancient sentinels, and the soft outlines of spectral forms appear briefly before dissolving back into the gray haze. Light from street lamps and distant windows casts elongated shadows, adding depth and uncertainty to each step, making every encounter feel personal and intimate. Misty Knoll's history is embedded in its stones and streets. Centuries of lives and deaths leave an imprint that seems to linger, manifesting in the shapes that wander among the graves. The spectral figures appear indifferent yet aware, moving as though bound to the town's memory and history. They do not interact directly, but their presence is a constant reminder of the unseen layers of life and death that coexist here. Visitors often describe sensations beyond sight. Cold touches on the shoulder or arm, fleeting and delicate, suggest awareness from unseen entities. Whispers, unintelligible yet distinctly present, drift through the mist, coming from places where sound should not exist. These experiences contribute to an immersive atmosphere, blending auditory, visual, and tactile elements into a cohesive narrative of the town's haunting character. The town itself seems to breathe with the fog. Trees sway silently in the breeze, their branches scratching against broken fences and leaning headstones. Abandoned houses stand as hollow witnesses, windows dark and empty, yet the scent of observation persists. Every step along cobblestone streets or gravel pathways is amplified, each sound echoing as though shared with unseen companions. Shadows shift in ways that defy expectation, merging the familiar with the inexplicable. Misty Knoll is not confined to the cemeteries. Spectral shapes move through streets, pause near abandoned homes, and drift along alleyways. The fog connects these spaces, creating a fluid environment where perception is constantly challenged. The town feels alive in its own way, a quiet entity observing those who enter, allowing glimpses of the past while maintaining distance from the present. The interplay of light and shadow is crucial to the experience. Moonlight breaking through clouds illuminates gravestones, revealing details hidden during daylight. The mist refracts this light, creating shapes that seem almost human, yet impossible. Visitors often report seeing fleeting forms near trees, windows, and monuments, their movements subtle but distinct, reinforcing the impression of a living memory embedded within the landscape. Footsteps, whispers, and cold touches create a rhythm unique to Misty Knoll. Each encounter is fleeting but memorable, a layering of sensation that leaves an imprint long after leaving the town. The spectral figures are not threatening, but their presence evokes a profound respect for the space, an understanding that life and death share these hills in ways unseen yet deeply felt. Exploration of the town becomes a journey through time and memory. Cemeteries, streets, and abandoned structures form a network of experiences, each step offering new encounters and subtle revelations. The mist, thick and ever-changing, ensures that no visit is the same, making every glimpse of figure or hearing of a whisper an individual and unrepeatable experience. Misty Knoll remains patient and enigmatic. Its cemeteries, fog-shrouded streets, and silent houses hold stories that are never fully told. Figures drift among gravestones. Footsteps echo from nowhere, and whispers linger in the mist. The town is a cinematic, immersive environment, where the unseen is as vital as the visible, and every moment resonates with tension, curiosity, and the haunting beauty of memory. Visitors leave with a lingering sense of wonder and unease, aware that Misty Knoll is more than a town. It is a space where past and present converge, where spectral figures wander silently among gravestones, and where the faint echoes of life continue in the folds of mist and shadow. Every step, sound, and sight becomes part of an experience that is at once captivating, mysterious, and unforgettable. The fog, the gravestones, and the wandering figures create a narrative that is experienced rather than explained. It is a place where the living walk among echoes, where footsteps follow without origin, and where the boundary between the seen and unseen blurs, leaving an indelible mark on all who traverse its haunted paths. Hollow Peak stands silent against the night, a town caught between memory and shadow. Streets that once bustled with life now lie empty, pavements cracked and buildings weathered by time. The air carries an uncanny stillness, broken only by sounds that should not exist. Locals speak quietly of ghostly children playing in the streets, their laughter faint and fleeting, echoing through alleys and courtyards where no one walks. Empty swings sway slowly in the breeze, though the playground is abandoned. Footsteps echo on cobblestones, soft and deliberate, fading just as the ear tries to trace their source. Doors creak and slam in deserted homes, the sound sharp in the silence, yet the wind holds no strength to move them. Each sound draws attention, pulling visitors deeper into the town as eerie rhythm, as if the buildings themselves are alive with history and memory. Figures appear along rooftops at night, silent silhouettes against the moonlit sky. They watch over the town with stillness that is unsettling, their presence fleeting yet unmistakable. Shadows stretch along walls and cross streets, sometimes lingering, sometimes vanishing entirely. The interplay of light and darkness transforms Hollow Peak into a living painting of mystery, where every corner hides potential movement, and every rooftop may host a watcher unseen by the day. Windows, long dark, catch glimmers of passing shadows, reflecting images that vanish when approached. Lanterns and stray lights from distant sources create an illusion of movement among abandoned streets. The effect is hypnotic, drawing the eye toward places that seem alive despite the emptiness. Visitors often report the sensation of being followed, the air thick with the impression of presence, even when no one is near. Hollow Peak's architecture enhances the haunting atmosphere. Narrow alleyways twist and turn unpredictably. Balconies and rooftops rise irregularly, and chimneys lean precariously toward the sky. The buildings tell their own stories, through peeling paint, weathered wood, and broken windows, whispering the weight of years past. Each detail contributes to a feeling of suspended time, where the past lingers visibly, shaping the present in subtle and disquieting ways. The sounds of the town are layered and complex. Faint voices echo from the far end of streets. Footsteps fall where no one walks. Doors respond as if moved by unseen hands. The auditory landscape blends with visual cues, heightening the sense that Hollow Peak is a place where normal rules do not apply, where silence itself carries intention and meaning. Visitors often experience a mixture of fascination and unease. The presence of ghostly children evokes innocence and sorrow, while the figures on rooftops suggest watchfulness and mystery. The town's quiet corners and elevated vantage points create moments of tension, as if the environment itself is aware of observers, testing perception and attention. Each movement of shadow, each flicker of light, reinforces a sense that Hollow Peak is more than a town. It is a space where the line between memory and reality blurs. As night deepens, Hollow Peak transforms further. The moon casts silver light on deserted streets, creating long, stretching shadows that seem to move independently. Every creak of timber and flutter of shutters becomes magnified, echoing like a heartbeat through the empty town. Ghostly children, figures on rooftops, and whispered footsteps converge into a rhythm unique to this place. A rhythm that marks Hollow Peak as a location both compelling and unnerving. By the time dawn approaches, the town appears to settle, though the sense of watchfulness does not entirely fade. Shadows retreat into corners, doors cease their sudden movements, and the streets fall silent once more. Yet those who have wandered its alleys and gazed along its rooftops leave carrying the impression of a town alive with unseen life. Hollow Peak endures as a testament to presence beyond perception, a place where history, memory, and mystery coexist in an unbroken, haunting tableau. Visitors depart with a lingering awareness. The echoes of laughter, footsteps and creaking doors remain embedded in consciousness, a reminder that some towns retain the spirits of those who once lived within them. It is a place of quiet reflection, curiosity and haunting beauty, and respect for the enigmatic forces that dwell beyond what can be seen. Shadow Hill rises above the surrounding landscape, its slopes blanketed in mist that rolls from the valleys below like a living tide. The fog moves silently, creeping along the ground, curling around the trunks of trees, and flowing into the quiet streets that wind to the old village nestled at the base of the hill. Every step taken here seems heavier, every sound muted yet sharper in the stillness. As visitors ascend the winding paths, they often sense a presence before they see it. Shadows flit at the edges of vision, disappearing when one turns to look. The air grows colder, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Each breath feels thick with anticipation, as though the hill itself is watching and waiting. Ancient churches stand scattered across Shadow Hill, their stone walls weathered by centuries of wind and rain. The windows are darkened, yet figures are often glimpsed within, moving silently between pews and arches. They seem aware of intruders, but remain distant, their actions deliberate and quiet. The faint sound of footsteps echoes across empty halls, though when visitors investigate, no one is found. Whispers drift through the fog, sometimes clear enough to make out a name, other times indistinguishable murmurs that brush against the ears and disappear. The whispers seem to follow travelers, coming from different directions, urging them forward or warning them back. The fog acts as a veil, concealing figures and hiding pathways, creating an environment where perception and reality blur. The village itself is steeped in history, with cobblestone streets and narrow alleys that twist between centuries-old buildings. Some alleys appear longer than they should, stretching unexpectedly and bending out of sight. Figures are occasionally seen standing in doorways or peering from windows, vanishing when approached, leaving behind a lingering chill. Lanterns that should be unlit sometimes glow with a soft, unnatural light, guiding some visitors deeper into the hill while unsettling others. Explorers often feel the weight of eyes upon them. Every step is observed, every movement recorded in the silent memory of the hill. A simple walk along the main road can feel like a journey through time, with glimpses of figures dressed in older fashions appearing briefly before melting into the mist. These apparitions are not threatening but insistently present, as though reminding visitors of lives once lived and stories left unfinished. In the forested areas surrounding Shadow Hill, the mist thickens, moving to the dense trees and over the undergrowth. Shadows are more active here, sometimes appearing as fleeting silhouettes between the trunks or crouched near fallen logs. The sounds in the Turia, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, the distant call of birdsa, blending with whispers and faint footsteps, creating a soundscape that is both enchanting and disquieting. Some travelers feel an unseen hand brush against their shoulder or a cold breath along their neck. Subtle reminders that the hill is more than it seems. Abandoned buildings and ruins add to the hill's mysterious character. Roofs collapse and walls crumble, yet lantern lights sometimes appear inside, flickering without any source. Figures may be seen climbing the ruins or standing at broken windows, watching silently before vanishing. The interplay of fog, shadow, and history makes the landscape both mesmerizing and unnerving, encouraging curiosity while demanding caution. Time seems to shift on Shadow Hill. Moments stretch and contract, making night feel longer, and the journey more complex than it truly is. A short stroll can feel like hours, while hours pass unnoticed. The whispers continue, sometimes close enough to be felt, other times distant yet persistent, as though carried from the past through the ever-present fog. Travelers quickly learn to move slowly, observing every detail, knowing that even small actions are noticed by the unseen inhabitants. At night, the hill takes on its most intense atmosphere. Lanterns glow along deserted streets. Fog thickens around every corner, and shadows become more defined. The churches hold the strongest presences, with figures appearing more frequently, and the whispers growing more insistent. The cries of the past echo faintly, blending with the natural night sounds, creating a haunting symphony that is impossible to ignore. Visitors who linger often describe a sense of being drawn deeper, compelled by unseen forces. Paths that seem familiar twist unexpectedly, leading to new areas where more figures and whispers await. Every step is measured, every breath taken with awareness, for the hill remembers. Each visitor leaves an impression, subtle or profound, added to collective memory of Shadow Hill. Even in the daylight, the hill retains its haunting qualities. Fog may lift partially, revealing the village and forest below, yet the feeling of observation remains. Shadows move differently here, and the memory of the night seems to linger in every corner. Lanterns may still flicker in abandoned spaces, and whispers are occasionally carried on the wind, reminding the living that the spirits are ever present. Shadow Hill is a place where history, memory, and the supernatural intertwine. Figures move silently, whispers call names, and fog obscures the boundary between reality and the unseen. Visitors experience a landscape alive with stories, a hill attended to every movement, and a presence that endures across generations. Every step taken here is recorded, every moment observed, and every visitor becomes part of the lingering memory of the hill, a witness to the shadows that define this haunting place. Gloomcrest rises silently on the edge of the valley, its abandoned factories towering over the town below, like forgotten sentinels. Rusted steel beams and crumbling brick walls form jagged silhouettes against the dim evening sky. Windows are shattered or caked with grime, revealing shadows that shift behind their broken panes. The streets leading to the industrial area are cracked and overgrown, giving the sense that time itself has retreated from this place. Visitors approaching the factories feel an immediate change in the air. The temperature drops subtly, and a heavy stillness hangs over surroundings. Every footstep echoes through the empty streets, mingling with distant sounds that could be the wind or something else entirely. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, each moment carrying the weight of memories long since abandoned. Figures sometimes appear in the broken windows, pale and indistinct. They stand silently, watching, their presence only noticeable at the edge of perception. When approached, these figures vanish, leaving no trace behind. Their fleeting appearances are unsettling, a reminder that Gloomcrest is not as empty as it seems. Shadows move across the interior spaces in ways that defy explanation, suggesting that remnants of life linger where industry once thrived. The factories themselves are vast and hollow, echoing with every sound. Rusted machinery and collapsed walkways create a landscape of jagged shapes and sharp edges. The air carries a metallic tang, mixed with a faint odor of decay and damp concrete. Occasional gusts of cold wind rush through doorways and broken windows, brushing against visitors as if propelled by unseen hands. These breezes carry a subtle, almost imperceptible pressure, heightening the awareness of being observed by something beyond the ordinary. The streets and alleyways between the factories are narrow and uneven. Overgrown weeds push through cracks in the asphalt, and piles of debris cast distorted shadows in the shifting light. Small noise ceases the creak of metal, the flutter of a torn sheet of plastic, or the clatter of loose bricks echo unnaturally in the stillness, reinforcing the feeling that the town itself is alive in a quiet, watchful way. Lanterns and stray reflections catch the eye in unexpected ways. Occasionally, a flicker of light appears inside a building, illuminating machinery or broken walls before vanishing without explanation. These brief illuminations suggest movement where none should be, creating an unsettling contrast between what is visible and what is imagined. Shadows stretch and twist, forming shapes that seem human yet disappear when confronted directly. Visitors often describe a sensation of being followed along the empty roads. The wind carries faint whispers, indistinct but present, blending with the sounds of shifting debris. The cold gusts move unpredictably, sometimes brushing across the back of the neck or over shoulders, reinforcing the impression that unseen eyes track every step. The experience is subtle but persistent, leaving a lasting impression long after leaving the area. Inside the largest factories, the scale of abandonment is staggering. High ceilings loom over rusted walkways, and sunlight filters through shattered windows to illuminate dust particles suspended in the air. Every step produces echoes that seem to stretch beyond the natural, amplifying small movements into something more significant. The combination of visual decay, subtle motion, and unnatural sounds creates a fully immersive environment, one that holds attention and provokes curiosity at every turn. They are not threatening, but their observation is undeniable, as if the factories themselves remember the lives and labor that once filled them. Time feels different in Gloomcrest. Moments stretch and compress unpredictably, leaving visitors disoriented yet attentive. Every glance toward a broken window or abandoned doorway carries the potential to reveal movement, to capture a fleeting figure, or to glimpse the subtle dance of light across rusted surfaces. The town and its factories seem to exist in a suspended state, hovering between decay and memory, inviting those who enter to witness the interplay of past and present. Even after leaving the area, the impact of Gloomcrest lingers. The images of figures and windows, the cold gusts that brush the skin, the flickering lights, and the echoing whispers remain vivid. A town whose industrial past is etched into every shadow, every broken wall, and every silent corridor. A place alive with memory. A town whose industrial past is etched into every shadow. A town whose industrial past is etched into every shadow, every broken wall, and every silent corridor. And every silent corridor. And every silent corridor. A town whose industrial past is etched into every shadow, every broken wall, and every silent corridor. Remain vivid. Gloomcrest stands as a testament to the persistence of presence beyond abandonment. Its factories, streets, and shadows hold stories in subtle, haunting ways. Those who explore the area leave with an awareness that some places, though long deserted, continue to breathe quietly, maintaining a delicate balance between the visible and the unseen, the living and the lingering. Silent Ridge sits atop a narrow escarpment, a place where wind and fog dominate the landscape. The town is lined with old inns and taverns, buildings weathered by decades of storms and neglect. Their wooden shutters hang loose, and doors creak with even the slightest breeze. Cobblestone streets wind between the structures, empty and silent, yet filled with a sense of anticipation that something unseen watches every step. As night falls, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows lengthen and deepen, stretching across the streets like fingers of memory reaching from the past. Some travelers describe hearing voices from upstairs rooms in the inns, faint at first, then growing clearer as though someone were walking or conversing beyond the walls. The voices are never understandable, yet the rhythm and cadence suggest purpose and presence, creating a disquieting awareness that the buildings themselves are alive in some way. The shadowy figures appear without warning. Travelers have reported glimpsing silhouettes moving through the hallways, disappearing as quickly as they appear. Some move slowly, almost gliding along the floor, while others seem to dart between rooms with unnerving precision. The figures are often visible only in the corner of one's eye, vanishing when looked at directly, leaving a lingering sense that the ridge is watching, assessing, and recording every movement. Old taverns emit a hollow resonance. The wind carries subtle, indistinct murmurs through cracked windows. Each inn seems to hold its own personality, an echo of the lives that once passed through. Faded wallpaper and cracked plaster form a backdrop for the spectral activity, adding a visual texture that is both melancholic and unnerving. Travelers feel as though the history of Silent Ridge is woven into the very walls, and that the past is not entirely gone. Footsteps are a common phenomenon here. Some hear slow, deliberate pacing above their heads in rooms that should be empty. Others hear rapid, soft scurrying as if someone or something is moving just out of reach. When one investigates, there is never anyone there. Doors remain closed, windows secure, and the floors untouched. The sounds are a bridge between the present and the past, a subtle reminder that the ridge retains the memory of its former inhabitants. Corridors in the inns are narrow and labyrinthine. Shadows stretch across the walls, merging with the flicker of candlelight or the dim glow of old lamps. Travelers report moments where a figure will step from the darkness, pause, and then vanish before being seen clearly. The effect is disorienting, creating a feeling that the town is a living organism with hidden corridors and spaces that defy conventional architecture. Silence and sound exist in tension, keeping visitors alert, cautious, and entirely immersed in the experience. Outside, the town-esque streets contribute to the mystery. Shapes seem to emerge in the mist, sometimes appearing human, other times less defined. Visitors walking along the deserted paths report the sensation of being followed, of movement in the periphery, though no one is present. Every sound of wind, footsteps, rustling leaves gain significance in this environment, heightening awareness and drawing attention to the unseen. The inns themselves often serve as focal points for activity. Furniture appears displaced, doors open or close on their own, and faint lights flicker through the windows. Travelers have sensed presences near beds or in corners. Yet direct observation yields nothing tangible. The ridge preserves a continuum of memory, blending the physical environment with something less definable. This layering of experience creates a tension that is palpable, a quiet suspense that never resolves, leaving a lasting impression on those who walk the halls. The ridge's isolation amplifies these sensations. With no modern distractions, the mind becomes attuned to subtle cues. The echo of footsteps, the shifting shadows, and the intermittent whispers. Travelers describe feeling eyes upon them, though they are alone. The environment encourages reflection on absence, history, and the thin boundary between the living and the unseen. Each encounter reinforces a town's enigmatic nature, merging observation with perception, and leaving each visitor with a sense of both wonder and unease. Walking the exterior paths, one notices the rhythm of the wind and fog against the buildings. The ridge is not static. It moves with weather, light, and time of day, constantly reshaping how shadows and shapes appear. Observers report fleeting glimpses of figures on balconies or appearing from attic windows, always at the edge of awareness. The natural and the supernatural blur in these moments, creating a cinematic experience where every element contributes to a narrative of quiet haunting. Silent Ridge embodies a haunting of memory and presence. Its empty inns and taverns are more than buildings. They are vessels of history, shaped by the lives that once passed through them, and the spirits that linger still. Every step, every sound, and every shadow reinforces a sense of continuity between past and present, making the ridge a living story that unfolds with each visitora-esque journey. The ridge leaves a lasting impression. Travelers depart with stories of footsteps, whispers, and fleeting silhouettes, but also with profound awareness of the town's depth and complexity. Silent Ridge is a place where history breathes through the walls, where every creak and rustle is imbued with significance, and where the presence of the unseen is felt as strongly as that of the living. The town exists at the intersection of memory and mystery, offering a cinematic, immersive experience that lingers long after the final step is taken. This town is a study in the power of atmosphere and perception. Every corridor, every room, and every fog-laden street contributes to the narrative, shaping visitor experience and engagement. Silent Ridge does not demand belief. It requires attention, inviting exploration, reflection, and awareness of what lies just beyond perception. The echoes of the past, the shadowy figures, and the voices from empty rooms are all threads woven into the fabric of a living, breathing, and haunting town. Silent Ridge endures as a testament to history, memory, and the subtle interactions between the seen and unseen. It is a place of curiosity, tension, and cinematic beauty. The fog, shadows, and empty halls create a tapestry of experience that is immersive, atmospheric, and unforgettable. Visitors leave forever changed, carry with them the sense that the Ridge watches, remembers, and whispers, ensuring its presence continues long after the journey is ended. Darkwood Summit sits perched at the edge of a vast and ancient forest, where towering trees stretch high into the sky, their branches intertwining to form a dense canopy. Sunlight filters through in scattered beams during the day, but as night falls, shadows deepen, and the town takes on a different character entirely. The forest is no longer a distant boundary. It becomes an active presence, alive with movement and whispers that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Visitors often describe the first sensation of arriving at Darkwood Summit as a chill that seems to come not from the air, but from the unseen. The forest presses close to the streets, and figures sometimes emerge from the tree lean, silent and fleeting. They appear at the edges of vision, motionless for moments before disappearing among the trees. The effect is disorienting, as if the town itself is bending perception, blurring the line between reality and the unknown. Footsteps echo softly on empty streets, though no one is there to make them. Faint sobbing drifts from the forest, indistinct yet emotionally potent, tugging at the attention of anyone who dares to linger. The sensation leaves a lasting impression, a reminder that the environment is more than it seems, that unseen presences may walk alongside those brave enough to explore the town. The architecture of Darkwood Summit reinforces the haunting atmosphere. Chimneys cast long shadows under the moon. Narrow alleys wind unpredictably, creating a labyrinthine quality that makes navigation feel like a test. Each creaking floorboard, each shifting shadow, contributes to the town's sense of unease, where the boundary between the familiar and the supernatural is easily crossed. The forest itself seems aware, dense and silent, until movement catches the eye. Branches sway though the air is still, shadows stretch unnaturally along pathways, and glimpses of figures vanish the moment attention focuses on them. Lanterns flicker in empty windows, creating illusions of life within abandoned structures. The combined effect is a town in which every visual cue feels significant, every sound carries weight, and every corner might conceal the unexpected. Visitors often find themselves drawn deeper into the town, unable to resist curiosity despite the growing unease. The figures among the trees appear in patterns, sometimes appearing to follow, sometimes retreating into darkness. Shadows move independently, defying logic, and sounds echo with an intensity that seems impossible in an empty town. The forest and streets interact seamlessly, forming a landscape where perception is challenged and reality feels fragile. Nightfall intensifies the mystery. Moonlight glances off windows, illuminating fleeting figures that vanish into the tree lean. The cold of the forest creeps through clothing, and the faint sobbing grows closer, as if the town itself were breathing around the visitor. Every step feels observed. Every turn is met with anticipation. The presence of the unseen is both compelling and unsettling, a reminder that Darkwood Summit is not merely a place of buildings and streets, but a living environment shaped by memory, history, and something beyond understanding. As darkness gives way to the first hints of dawn, the town appears to retreat into silence. Shadows collapse into corners. The sobbing fades, and the cold touches dissipate. Yet the experience lingers, etched into the mind of those who walk the streets and glimpse the figures among the trees, and that the forest itself may carry secrets impossible to fully comprehend. Darkwood's summit leaves its mark, an awareness that some places retain echoes of the past, and that the forest itself may carry secrets impossible to fully comprehend. By morning, the town looks ordinary, almost serene. The forest looms as a quiet boundary once more. But those who have ventured here know that beneath its calm exterior lies a web of presence and memory. Darkwood's summit endures as a place of mystery, where figures vanish and shadows move independently, where whispers are heard and chills are felt without explanation. It is a town that challenges perception, inviting travelers to question what they see and feel, and to confront the unknown with every step along its streets and edges. Visitors depart with the knowledge that Darkwood Summit is never truly empty. The town exists in the interstice between the natural and the supernatural, a place where the forest holds stories, and the boundary between the living and the unseen is fragile and shifting, a lasting reminder that some places are alive in ways that defy reason and understanding. Grayview sits atop a hill, its iron gates twisted with age and weather, overlooking the quiet town below. The cemetery stretches across the slope, rows of gravestones rising from the earth like silent sentinels. Ancient oaks and cypress trees punctuate the landscape, their branches swaying gently in the wind, casting long shadows that move across the worn paths. A sense of stillness hangs in the air, yet beneath it lies a tension that feels almost alive, as if the ground itself holds secrets waiting to be witnessed. Visitors who approach the hill often notice an immediate change in atmosphere. The sounds of the town fade into distant murmurs, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the faint creak of old stone monuments. The further one ascends, the more the hill seems to watch, the air growing colder and heavier. Shapes can sometimes be glimpsed at the edges of vision, standing motionless among the gravestones, observing with a presence that is both solemn and unnerving. At twilight, the cemetery takes on an even more ethereal quality. The fading sunlight casts a golden haze across the hilltop, illuminating weathered carvings and inscriptions that have endured for generations. Figures are occasionally seen moving silently between graves, their forms indistinct yet unmistakably human. They do not approach, nor do they retreat, merely existing as part of the landscape, their presence felt more than fully seen. Whispers sometimes drift on the wind, unintelligible yet insistent, brushing against the ears of visitors and lingering long after the sound has passed. Paths wind to the cemetery, some lined with iron fences and crumbling statues, others disappearing into clusters of overgrown grass and ivy. Travelers often feel drawn along these paths, compelled to explore further, even as an inexplicable unease tightens around them. Occasionally, spectral horses appear near the upper edge of the hill, pulling phantom carriages along invisible roads. Their hooves strike the ground silently, yet the presence of motion is undeniable. Figures in the carriages sit rigidly, watching the living as they pass, existing in a dimension both near and distant. The gravestones themselves tell stories of the past, etched with names and dates, memorials to lives once vibrant and now gone. Visitors often pause at these markers, feeling a connection across time, sensing the lingering energy of those who have passed. Some report subtle movements of shadows along the stones, or the inexplicable feeling of being accompanied, though no one else is present. Each section of the hill has its own character, from the older, weathered graves at the peak to the newer markers near the base, yet all share a quiet intensity that permeates the space. At night, Grayview transforms completely. The darkness swallows the paths and monuments, leaving only vague outlines visible in the moonlight. Figures become more pronounced in the dim illumination, occasionally stepping onto the paths before dissolving into the shadows. Whispers rise and fall in pitch and tone, sometimes calling names, sometimes sounding like faint conversations carried from another era. Lanterns or lights appear fleetingly, hovering near graves without source, guiding some visitors deeper into the cemetery, while startling others with their sudden presence. Travelers often describe a feeling of being watched, of each movement being measured and recorded. The hilltop itself seems conscious, responding to the living in subtle ways, shifting shadows or stirring the mist that rolls across the ground. Spectral carriages glide silently along the edges of the cemetery, their passengers gazing down upon those below, a silent reminder of the lives and stories interwoven into this place. Even the wind carries a strange rhythm here, as if it moves in sync with the whispers and unseen movements that define the hill. Despite the haunting atmosphere, there's a profound beauty to Graveview. The interplay of light and shadow, the solemn presence of trees and stones, and the echo of past lives create a sense of reverence. Visitors are drawn to linger, feeling both awe and caution, aware that every step leaves an impression in the memory of the hill. Time here is fluid, with moments stretching and contracting, creating an experience where past and present coexist. And the unseen world feels as tangible as the earth beneath the feet. Even for those who visit in daylight, the sense of otherworldly presence remains. Shadows shift unexpectedly, whispers may ride the wind, and distant shapes appear only to vanish when approached. Travelers come seeking history or solitude, yet invariably encounter the guardians of the cemetery, spirits who watch silently, ensuring that every story is remembered and every presence acknowledged. The hill holds a balance between the living and the departed, a threshold where memory and mystery intertwine seamlessly. Graveview is more than a cemetery. It is a repository of lives, echoes, and lingering energies. Figures stand among the gravestones. Spectral horses trace invisible routes, and whispers persist across the hill. Every visitor becomes part of the ongoing narrative, observed by unseen eyes, and remembered long after they leave. The Hilltop Cemetery watches over the town below, a timeless sentinel where the living and the dead coexist in quiet, spectral harmony. In the end, the experience of Graveview is both haunting and humbling. Travelers leave with a sense of having walked among memories, having glimpsed shadows that linger between worlds, and having felt the presence of those who remain tied to the hill. The spirits watch, the wind carries whispers, and phantom carriages glide silently along paths that exist beyond time, preserving the stories and mysteries of Graveview for all who dare to climb its slopes. Fog spire sits shrouded in perpetual mist, the streets winding to the town like arteries carrying memory and silence. The streets winding to the town like arteries carrying memory and silence. Street lamps flicker unpredictably, though no electricity flows through their wires. Their brief glows cast distorted shadows that stretch and twist across the cracked pavement, illuminating corners of the town that might otherwise remain unseen. Visitors to Fog Spire feel an immediate shift in atmosphere. The air is heavy with dampness, carrying the faint scent of wet stone and decaying leaves. Every sound is magnified in the stillness, from the soft drip of water along gutters to the distant echo of an unseen footstep. The fog swirls around each building and alleyway, creating shapes that can appear solid and then vanish without warning. Figures emerge intermittently from the mist, ghostly and indistinct. They drift along streets, pause at doorways, or linger near the edges of empty squares. When observed directly, they disappear, leaving only the faint impression of movement where none should exist. These fleeting apparitions are never threatening, yet their presence is undeniable, a reminder that Fog Spire is far from empty. The buildings themselves are weathered and silent. Windows are broken or fogged with age. Doors sag on rusted hinges, and paint peels in long strips. Some structures lean slightly, as though listening to the whispers carried on the wind. From within, faint murmurs seem to rise and fall, echoing across empty halls. Whispers drift out into the streets, soft enough to be mistaken for the wind, yet persistent enough to suggest that Summonia or Something is speaking from within. Walking through the town, travelers notice the interplay between fog and light. The flickering lamps illuminate street corners, twisted signage, and abandoned stairways. Shadows gather and disperse with every movement of the mist, sometimes forming shapes that suggest a human presence. only to dissolve moments later. The effect is hypnotic, blending beauty and unease into a single experience that keeps the observer alert and aware. The fog itself behaves almost like a living entity. It coils through alleys, creeps along rooftops, and slips under doors. Each movement carries a subtle chill, brushing against the skin as though a hand were passing closer behind or alongside. Visitors often feel watched, a persistent awareness of presence that cannot be seen, yet is impossible to ignore. Lanterns, windows, and reflective surfaces contribute to the sense of uncertainty. The town-esque design amplifies the effect with narrow streets, hidden courtyards, and archways that guide attention in unexpected directions. Every shimmer, shadow, and distortion invites interpretation, leaving the mind alert to every possibility. The sounds of Fog Spire are subtle but unnerving. Drips of water, distant creaks, the soft rustle of fog through leaves, and faint murmurs. And faint murmurs create a layered auditory environment. Some visitors swear they hear names called or soft laughter from buildings that have long been empty. The town seems to remember its past inhabitants, replaying fragments of life for those willing to notice. Time feels altered in Fog Spire. Moments stretch and contract unpredictably, leaving travelers unsure of how long they have been wandering. Through the mist, familiar objects appear strange and elusive. Each turn in the street, each shadow in a doorway feels like a delicate negotiation between observation and imagination. Figures appear repeatedly along main roads and side alleys, lingering at the edge of perception. The effect is subtle but persistent, leaving a lingering impression that the town is alive with memory and quiet intent. Observers feel part of a narrative that unfolds slowly, a story written by shadows, light, and fog rather than by words or sound. By the time travelers leave Fog Spire, the experience remains vivid. The flickering lamps, drifting figures, cold drafts, and whispering voices leave impressions that linger. In memory, the town exists as a place where the past and present intertwine. The town exists as a place where the unseen holds as much significance as what is visible. The unseen holds as much significance as what is visible. The town exists as a place where the past and present intertwine. The town exists. Fog Spire is a testament to quiet mystery and lingering memory. Its empty streets, abandoned buildings, and shifting mist carry stories that unfold for those who move through them attentively. Visitors depart with an acute awareness that some places are never truly abandoned, that subtle traces of presence and history remain suspended in the air, waiting for those willing to see, to listen, and to experience the delicate interplay between shadow, light, and fog. Hollow Ridge lies in a quiet valley, its town square empty and still. Buildings surrounding the square are weathered and abandoned, their paint peeling and windows dark. The streets are cracked and overgrown, yet each corner seems charged with subtle presence, as if the town itself remembers the lives that once moved through it. The old courthouse dominates the square, its stone FA section Ade towering above the surrounding structures. Travelers often pause there, sensing an energy that is difficult to explain. Figures have been reported near its entrance, shadowy forms that linger in peripheral vision and vanish when looked at directly. Their presence is fleeting yet powerful, creating a tension that clings to the air like mist. Visitors describe sudden chills while walking through Hollow Ridge, a cold that is not caused by the wind or the temperature. Some feel invisible eyes tracking their movements, a sensation of being observed by something beyond human understanding. Every footstep echoes unnaturally on the empty streets, amplifying the feeling of isolation. The town seems alive in a way that is subtle but undeniable, reacting to those who wander its paths. The courthouse interior holds its own mysteries. Wooden floors creak as though someone is pacing above, and the rusted hinges of doors shift with unseen force. Shadows gather in corners, merging with the faint light, filtering through cracked windows. Even in broad daylight, the air is thick with unease, and visitors speak an oppressive stillness that seems to wait for their attention, for their presence to be acknowledged. Figures appear unpredictably around the square. Some are seen near benches, or under the arches of old storefronts, standing motionless before disappearing into thin air. They are indistinct at first, more like impressions in solid forms. Yet their movements carry a purpose. Travelers have followed these shapes with careful eyes, only to find nothing but emptiness. The uncertainty heightens a sense of mystery, blending fear with fascination. The town streets amplify subtle sounds. The rustling of leaves, the distant clatter of a broken sign, or the soft creak of timber, can all be interpreted as something more. Visitors report hearing whispers along alleys and in the shadows of the courthouse steps. Words are rarely discernible, yet the rhythm of the murmur suggests intent, as if the town communicates in a language of presence and motion rather than speech. Time in Hollow Ridge feels suspended. Travelers often pause, sensing figures that appear at the edge of vision, only to vanish when approached. This blending of light, shadow, and perception forms a landscape that is at once beautiful and unsettling, a cinematic tableau that shifts with every step. The courthouse yard seems to attract the most activity. Figures here often appear in pairs or small groups, standing silently before moving apart. Some travelers have reported a tug at the corner of their awareness, a faint pressure that draws them towards certain paths. The feeling is disorienting yet compelling, as though the town itself guides exploration, while remaining just out of reach. Evenings bring a deeper layer of mystery. Travelers report cold drafts along corridors of buildings, and the sensation of being followed grows stronger. Occasionally, the courthouse steps appear to hold shapes that shift and change with the dimming light. The interplay of perception and reality in Hollow Ridge creates an experience that is immersive and unforgettable. The architecture contributes to the haunting atmosphere. Each building is steeped in history, and signs of abandonment tell stories of former lives. Broken windows, sagging roofs, and faded signage evoke a sense of nostalgia and loss. Yet beneath this decay lies a feeling of lingering life, an echo of events and people that refuse to be forgotten. Visitors often remark that the town feels aware, its presence palpable in every shadow, every flicker of movement, and every subtle sound. Hollow Ridge also influences the senses in less tangible ways. The air carries a weight, a mix of cold and stillness that brushes against the skin. Footsteps and whispers intertwine, forming a rhythm that is felt more than heard. Travelers describe a sense of disorientation, where distance and space seem altered and familiar streets appear unfamiliar. The town molds perception, drawing attention to details that might otherwise go unnoticed and heightening the awareness of what is unseen. The square itself holds a haunting beauty. Overgrown flower beds and cracked fountains speak of life that once flourished here. The courthouse stands like a sentinel, observing all who enter. Figures appear at odd intervals, silent and watchful, their presence lingering in the imagination long after they have vanished. The balance between stillness and activity creates a tension that is both gripping and cinematic, encouraging visitors to explore, to observe, and to reflect on the unseen. Ultimately, Hollow Ridge endures as a place where the past and present converge. Its abandoned streets and empty square tell a story of loss and memory, while the figures, whispers, and chills suggest a layer of existence beyond the tangible. Travelers leave with the impression that the town is alive in some unseen way, that every building and shadow carries a fragment of history, and that the air itself holds the essence of those who have come before. Hollow Ridge is more than a town. It is an experience, a living narrative composed of space, light, sound, and perception. Every step, every glance, and every subtle sensation contributes to a larger story of presence, memory, and quiet mystery. Visitors depart carrying the weight of its atmosphere, the echo of footsteps, and a lingering sense of being watched, ensuring that Hollow Ridge remains in memory long after the journey has ended. The town's power lies not in overt phenomena, but in the subtle interplay of observation and imagination. Every empty street, every shadowed doorway, and every silent corner. And every silent corner invites exploration and reflection. Hollow Ridge whispers its stories through architecture, light, and perception, leaving travelers with cinematic and haunting impression that is as immersive as it is unforgettable. Hollow Ridge endures as a testament to the unseen, a place where presence and history are inseparable. It is a town that watches, remembers, and subtly interacts with those who enter, offering a hauntingly beautiful experience for all who wander its silent streets and abandoned square. Phantom Hilltop rises above the surrounding landscape, a place where time seems to pause, and the air feels heavier with each step. Streets wind through the hilltop, lined with mansions that have long been abandoned, their once grand facades weathered by years of neglect. Windows are shattered or clouded with dust, and overgrown gardens spill into the streets, creating a sense that nature is slowly reclaiming the place. Visitors often arrive with curiosity, drawn by tales of strange occurrences and the weight of history resting upon the hill. The atmosphere is immediate, a blend of quiet and tension that settles over anyone who walks the streets after sunset. Doors creak open and shut without wind, sometimes startling travelers as the sound echoes from empty halls. Shadows form in upper windows, shifting and stretching as if observing the living from a distance. The sensation is unsettling, a constant reminder that the hilltop is not as empty as it appears. The streets themselves seem to possess a rhythm of their own. Footsteps echo against cobblestones in patterns that defy logic. Passers-by occasionally feel a subtle brush of movement behind them, though no one is there. The combination of decayed architecture and the whispering of leaves through broken trees creates a setting where the imagination is drawn into every corner. Mansions loom on either side, their dark silhouettes framed against the dim light of evening, and the mind cannot help but trace the outlines of what once was. Filled with narrow corridors and grand halls that invite both awe and unease. And cobwebs drape chandeliers like forgotten veils, with sounds that do not match the movements of any living visitor. Windows, silhouettes that vanish when approached. A mixture of curiosity and caution that grows with every passage through the abandoned homes. The hilltop is especially eerie at night. Moonlight filters through broken panes, casting fragmented patterns across the floors. Shadows lengthen and twist as the wind moves through the trees, and distant noises resemble the echo of voices long gone. Lanterns and flashlights illuminate the decaying interiors, but often reveal little more than vague shapes and shifting darkness. Each step brings anticipation, as if the next corner could reveal a figure standing silently, watching, or a door swinging open as if inviting entry into the unknown. Locals speak of the hilltop with hushed tones, recounting stories of strange lights flickering in upper windows and the sensation of unseen presences brushing past. Some believe the abandoned mansions retain the echoes of past residents, their routines and memories lingering like shadows that cannot fully dissipate. Visitors describe a feeling of being drawn into these echoes, as if the hilltop itself is aware of their presence, responding with subtle movements and sounds that challenge perception. Even during the day, Phantom Hilltop carries an aura of tension. The sunlight highlights the decay in sharp detail, revealing broken railings, chipped stonework, and ivy climbing walls, as if to consume them entirely. The silence can be overwhelming, broken only by the occasional creak of an old shutter or the distant call of a bird. Yet this quiet is deceptive, as many visitors report hearing footsteps, following them through open courtyards or whispers drifting from upper floors. Sound that vanish when sought directly. Time seems to move differently on the hilltop. Explorers often lose track of hours, their attention absorbed by the interplay of shadows and architecture. The mansions themselves act as both stage and audience, their empty rooms responding to movements with subtle changes in air, temperature, and sound. The combination of history, neglect, and the inexplicable creates a layered experience where curiosity and fear are intertwined, compelling visitors to move forward even as the hilltop tests their courage. As night deepens, the hilltop feels simultaneously alive and abandoned. Windows glow with reflected moonlight. Doors creak in rhythm with unseen footsteps. And shadows stretch along walls as though tracing paths for invisible residents. Each mansion tells a story without words, a narrative of life once present and now only hinted at through fleeting glimpses and subtle sensations. Visitors leave with the impression that the hilltop is more than a place. It is a living repository of memory and mystery. When travelers descend from Phantom Hilltop, they carry a sense of having touched something beyond the ordinary. The echoes of footsteps, the shifting shadows, and the doors that open and close on their own remain in memory. A reminder that the abandoned mansions are not merely empty shells. They are vessels of lingering presence, places where the past interacts with the present in subtle and sometimes startling ways. Phantom Hilltop endures as a site of mystery, a testament to the uncanny blending of architecture, history, and the unseen. Whispering Pines Town rests quietly among the hills, its edges blending into dense forest that seem to stretch endlessly. The pines sway gently in the wind, their needles brushing against each other in a sound that resembles soft murmurs. Travelers who approach the town often remark on the stillness that envelopes the area, a calm that feels almost unnatural, as if the hills themselves are holding their breath. The forest surrounding the town is dense and dark, yet filled with life that cannot always be seen. Shadows flicker between trunks and underbrush, moving in ways that defy natural explanation. Some visitors swear they catch glimpses of figures gliding silently through the trees, vanishing before a second look can confirm their presence. The forest seems to watch, each rustle and whisper carrying a sense of intention, as if the trees themselves are the keepers of secrets too ancient to speak aloud. The streets of Whispering Pines Town are narrow and winding, lined with homes and shops that have seen decades pass. At night, a faint light often glows along the paths, appearing and disappearing without source. Some say these are the spirits of those who once lived here, wandering the streets, while others believe they are echoes of long-forgotten events lingering in the atmosphere. Travelers who follow these lights often find themselves drawn deeper into the town, where the boundary between the living and the unseen grows thinner with every step. In the heart of the town, a small square lies open, bordered by old stone buildings and weathered benches. The air here carries a hushed quality, heavy with anticipation, and visitors report hearing faint whispers, almost like conversations carried from another era. Shadows sometimes appear at the edges of vision, standing motionless before dissolving into the darkness. Even during the day, the forest whispers over the hills, the sound weaving through the streets and creating a feeling of quiet vigilance. Walkers along the town's outskirts often speak of figures glimpsed among the trees. They move with a fluidity that seems impossible, appearing only to vanish when approached. Some have reported seeing lanterns floating through the forest, casting light on paths that have long been overgrown. The glow seems to beckon travelers, urging them to explore further. Yet there is an unspoken warning in the way the light dances, never staying still long enough to be followed with certainty. Old homes and abandoned buildings along the forest edge hold their own stories. Windows broken and doors ajar, they seem to exhale memories with every creak of timber. Visitors who peer inside often feel a presence, a weight in the air, or the sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movement. Whispers ride the wind through cracked walls and shattered panes, carrying names and phrases that are almost recognizable, yet never clear enough to be understood fully. The town cemetery, perched on a slight rise overlooking the streets, is another focal point of mystery. Gravestones lean with age and moss covers the oldest markers, yet there is an eerie vitality here. Shadows pass among the stones, sometimes aligning with the names etched in the weathered rock. At night, the wind carries the faintest of voices, a chorus of murmurs that seems to flow from the forest into the town itself. Lantern lights appear among the graves, floating without source, illuminating paths that seem to guide visitors to the history of the place. Time in Whispering Pines Town feels fluid, stretched by the presence of unseen observers. Travelers often speak of losing track of hours as they walk along its streets. the whispers and shifting shadows creating a dreamlike atmosphere. Even brief visits leave lasting impressions, with some feeling watched long after they have left town, as though a part of Whispering Pines follows those who enter its hills and forests. The forested hills surrounding the town are not just a backdrop. They are active participants in its mysteries. The pines sway and creak with messages only the attuned can hear. Paths wind between gnarled roots and fallen branches, guiding some travelers while diverting others. Ghostly figures often stand among the trees, silent observers who disappear at the slightest movement, leaving behind only the lingering sense of their presence. Visitors who linger into the night speak of the town's atmosphere becoming almost tangible. The whispers grow more pronounced, and the forest seems to lean closer, as if sharing stories in tones too soft for the living to fully comprehend. Ghostly lights dance along the streets and paths, and shadows stretch longer, moving independently of any light source. Some who enter the forest never reach the town again, and others return with stories of silent figures watching and guiding them in equal measure. Whispering Pines Town is a place where the natural and the supernatural intersect. Figures move silently among the trees. Ghostly lights float without source, and whispers weave through the hills and streets. Time and space feel fluid, and every step taken is recorded in the memory of the forest and the town. Visitors leave with an impression of being part of something larger, watched over by the spirits that inhabit the hills and trees. A place where the living and the unseen coexist in quiet, lingering harmony. By dawn, the forest quiets and the lights vanish, leaving only the rustle of pine needles and the soft hum of life. Yet those who walk the paths of Whispering Pines carry the memory of the shadows, the whispers, and the ghostly lights, knowing that the town and its hills retain their secrets and guardians. Every visitor becomes part of the ongoing story, their footsteps remembered by the Whispering Pines, their presence recorded in the delicate balance between the living and the unseen. Dark Hollow lies shrouded in a thick, rolling fog. Streets are empty, lined with homes that have long been abandoned. Windows gape like hollow eyes, and doors hang ajar on rusted hinges, allowing the mist to snake inside and settle in every room. The fog moves deliberately, curling along floorboards and stairways, and giving the impression that the houses themselves are breathing. Visitors moving through Dark Hollow feel an immediate chill. The fog is damp and cold, clinging to clothing and skin, carrying with a faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Every sound is amplified in the quiet, from the distant rustle of trees to the soft creak of boards underfoot. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, as if the town remembers every step ever taken within its boundaries and watches silently as new ones are added. Figures appear intermittently near the old cemeteries that border the town. They are pale and indistinct, standing motionless among leaning headstones and overgrown paths. Some are close enough to be recognized as human shapes, but their features are obscured by shadow and mist. When approached, they vanish into fog, leaving only the faintest ripple in the air and a lingering sense of presence. A lingering sense of presence. The cemeteries themselves exude a haunting quiet. Headstones lean at odd angles, some partially sunken, others fractured by time. Iron fences rust along their perimeters, and weeds push through every crack in the stone pathways. Every element seems suspended between decay and memory, reinforcing the sense that this is a place where the past refuses to be forgotten. Dark Hollow is alive with sound in subtle and unsettling ways. Travelers report hearing cries that echo faintly across the streets, sometimes joined by soft laughter that seems impossibly close yet impossibly distant. The sounds come and go unpredictably, carried by the fog, leaving listeners uncertain of their source. It is an auditory landscape that keeps attention heightened and the mind alert, blending reality with imagination in ways that are difficult to distinguish. The homes themselves tell stories through shadow and light. Faded curtains flutter in the mist, and broken panes allow slivers of fog to penetrate rooms that have not seen life for decades. Lanterns or faint glows occasionally flicker from within, though no electricity flows and no living presence is visible. These lights reveal glimpses of furniture, stairs, or objects covered in dust, only to vanish moments later, leaving the space to fade back into shadow. Visitors moving through the streets often feel the sensation of being followed. The fog swirls around their legs and brushes against shoulders as if guided by unseen hands. Shadows shift at the edge of vision, forming shapes that dissolve when looked at directly. Every glance into a doorway, window, or cemetery path carries the potential to reveal a fleeting figure, reinforcing the sense that Dark Hollow is quietly observing. The atmosphere of the town is immersive and unrelenting. Every corner, alleyway, and abandoned home contributes to a continuous interplay of light, shadow, and fog. The mist softens edges and blurs boundaries, creating illusions of movement where there is none and revealing shapes that may or may not exist. Every sound, every draft of air, and every flicker of light becomes amplified, creating a space that is as captivating as it is unsettling. Every sound, every draft of air, and every flicker of light becomes amplified, creating a space that is as captivating as it is unsettling. Time feels altered within Dark Hollow. Moments stretch and compress in unpredictable ways, leaving visitors disoriented yet focused. The combination of fog, figures, cries, and laughter create a narrative that unfolds slowly, a story shaped not by words but by perception and experience. The town itself becomes an active participant in this narrative, guiding attention and evoking emotion with every step. Figures appear repeatedly at cemetery edges, near homes, and along foggy streets. These encounters are never direct threats, but they leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the awareness that Dark Hollow is a place where life and memory persist together, intertwined in subtle and haunting ways. By the time travelers leave the town, the fog and its stories remain vivid in the mind. The cries, laughter, flickering lights, and shifting shadows linger long after. The streets are behind them. Dark Hollow endures as a testament to the persistence of memory and presence. A place where abandoned homes, fog-laden streets, and silent cemeteries carry echoes of lives once lived. Dark Hollow exists as a space where the unseen and the remembered coexist. Its fog, figures, and subtle sounds create an experience that is immersive, mysterious, and unforgettable. Those who wander its streets leave with the realization that some places are never truly empty. The town continues to breathe, quietly and observantly, holding fragment of history and presence in every corner, waiting for those willing to witness and listen. Raven Hollow lies shrouded in perpetual twilight, a town where the wind whispers through narrow streets and empty alleys. The buildings are worn and aged, their facades cracked, windows dark, and doorways sagging with time. Though silence dominates the town, footsteps echo unnaturally at night, bouncing off walls and cobblestones as if the town itself remembers those who once walked its streets. Travelers who wander through Raven Hollow speak of a presence that cannot be seen but is undeniably felt. Shadows flicker at the edges of vision, moving with purpose and vanishing when observed directly. Figures are sometimes glimpsed in alleys or at street corners, ethereal and indistinct, yet their shapes carry the unmistakable weight of former lives. They drift through the town like memories caught between worlds, leaving only traces of motion and cold air in their wake. The main square of Raven Hollow is dominated by an old clock tower, its face frozen in time. Around it, empty benches and overgrown planters speak of a life that has long since faded. Travelers report feeling cold hands brushing their arms, a gentle tug at their clothing that cannot be explained. The sensation is subtle at first, almost imagined, but grows more insistent as footsteps echo and shadows linger longer than they should. Every building seems to hold a story, etched into the wooden beams and stone walls. The tavern on the corner appears abandoned, yet visitors have heard the creak of doors opening above, the shuffle of unseen feet along the upper floors. The church at the edge of town is silent, yet some report glimpsing figures moving between pews, vanishing when approached. Each encounter is fleeting, leaving the observer questioning the boundaries between perception and reality. Even the narrow alleys carry a sense of life beyond the visible. Travelers have felt invisible hands tugging at their clothing, pulling them away from one path and toward another. Whispers seem to emanate from the walls themselves, words indistinct but laden with urgency. The air grows colder in these spaces, and shadows stretch unnaturally, creating an unsettling rhythm of light movement and anticipation. The outskirts of Raven Hollow offer their own eerie impressions. Overgrown gardens, abandoned carts, and broken fences frame the town, blending natural decay with human absence. Figures are reported wandering aimlessly, moving through weeds and debris with otherworldly grace. Nightfall transforms Raven Hollow into a landscape of heightened perception. The moon casts pale light over rooftops and alleyways, elongating shadows and amplifying subtle movements. Every sound of footsteps on gravel, the rustle of leaves, the distant groan of timber becomes layered with meaning. The town itself seems aware, responding to those who traverse it with gentle nudges, fleeting visions, and a sense of being watched. The cemetery at the town's edge is particularly active in these hours. Gravestones tilt and crumble, and mist rises from the earth, creating an ethereal haze. Figures have been seen wandering between the markers, often pausing to look toward intruders before fading into the night. Some travelers report a sensation of tugging, as if unseen hands are guiding or warning them away from certain areas. The air here feels heavier, and every breath carries the weight of history and lingering presence. Raven Hollow also plays with the senses in subtle ways. Shadows may appear to move independently of light, and distant sounds can seem near, drawing attention to corners and corridors that might otherwise go unnoticed. Travelers speak of a disorientation that is not physical but perceptual, where familiar streets feel unfamiliar, and time seems to stretch unpredictably. This effect deepens a sense of mystery, creating an immersive experience that blends curiosity with unease. The town square often draws visitors despite its reputation. Figures are seen near the fountain, standing silently before dissolving into darkness. The old clock tower seems to mark time differently here, its hands frozen yet somehow suggesting movement in other dimensions. The interplay of light, shadow, and perception heightens the atmosphere, and those who linger report sensations that defy explanation. Cold touches, fleeting glimpses, and the feeling that the town itself is alive. Architecture amplifies the haunting energy. Rusted balconies, cracked windows, and sagging roofs all contribute to the sense of abandonment, while simultaneously hinting at lingering life. Each detail seems purposeful, designed to draw attention and evoke reflection. Even the smallest feature, a broken railing, a tilted sign, a shutter swinging in the wind carry weight, suggesting unseen occupants or echoes of past events. Each detail seems purposeful, designed to draw attention and evoke reflection. Travelers often ascribe a rhythm to the town, a cadence of presence that is almost musical. Footsteps, whispers, and subtle movements form a symphony of perception, where every sound and shadow communicates something beyond immediate understanding. Raven Hollow exists in this delicate balance, offering both beauty and unease, drawing people into its narrative of history, memory, and lingering presence. Ultimately, Raven Hollow is a place where the past and present converge, where the living and the departed share the same spaces. It is a town that challenges perception, inviting exploration while maintaining its secrets. Each figure, each shadow, each whisper adds to a larger story of unseen life and quiet power. Travelers leave with the imprint of its atmosphere, carrying the sense of footsteps echoing behind them, cold hands brushing their arms, and the haunting feeling of being watched. Raven Hollow endures as a town of memory and presence, where architecture, light, and shadow merge to form an experience unlike any other. Every street, alley, and building invites observation, reflection, creating a cinematic journey that is immersive, mysterious, and unforgettable. The town is more than abandoned streets and empty buildings. It is a living narrative composed of movement, perception, and subtle interaction. Each step taken by a traveler becomes part of the story, ensuring that Raven Hollow lingers in the mind long after the journey ends. Mistwood's summit rises sharply above the surrounding valleys. a place where fog drifts continuously through towering pines, and abandoned paths wind toward forgotten cabins. Lanterns, long unlit, flicker inexplicably along these trails, casting a pale glow that dances across cracked stones and weathered wood. The air carries a damp chill, heavy with the scent of moss and fallen leaves, and a sense of stillness settles over anyone who ventures near. Travelers report the sudden sensation of cold air sweeping across their skin, as if the forest itself exhales in moments of quiet anticipation. Each step along the summit feels measured, almost watched, with shadows shifting at the periphery of vision. Windows of the cabin sometimes reflect vague forms, silhouettes that vanish when approached, leaving only the lingering impression of presence. The combination of silence and subtle movement creates a tension that draws visitors deeper into the heart of the summit. The paths through mistwood are lined with ancient trees, their twisted branches forming a natural canopy that blocks the moonlight. The fog clings low to ground, curling around tree trunks and drifting across empty walkways. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig becomes amplified, a small sound that echoes through the mist like a whispered warning. Some explorers describe glimpsing figures moving just beyond sight, lingering near cabins or stepping lightly along trails before dissolving into fog. Cabins on the summit are weathered and fragile, their walls bowed by time and neglect. Doors sometimes swing slowly, unaccompanied by wind, and floorboards creak underfoot even when no one walks above. Lanterns inside these cabins glow faintly at times, their light revealing fleeting images of rooms once occupied, then fading as if swallowed by shadows. The sensation of being observed grows stronger with each step, a quiet pressure that compels visitors to move cautiously. At night, Mistwood Summit takes on a heightened sense of the uncanny. Moonlight pierces a fog in narrow beams, illuminating patches of forest floor while leaving surrounding areas in darkness. Shadows stretch and twist along cabins and trees, and the faintest noise ceases of footsteps on gravel. The brush of fabrica can trigger a rush of tension. Travelers speak of glimpsing figures standing silently in upper windows, watching and waiting, only to vanish when investigated. The summit seems to breathe with a rhythm of its own, alive with subtle movements and sounds that cannot be fully explained. The summit's allure lies in its combination of beauty and unease. Sunlight highlights the textures of lichen-covered stones and moss-laden logs during the day, but night reveals a different character. The fog thickens, enveloping the paths and cabins in layers of obscurity. Whispers of air passing through trees sound almost like voices, and the occasional splash of cold air against the skin startles even the most experienced visitors. Figures appear at the edges of perception, leading some travelers to question whether the summit itself is guiding them. Those who venture further along abandoned trails describe a growing sense of timelessness. Hours seem to stretch unnaturally, with the fog softening sounds and diffusing light. Shadows move independently of any source, sometimes mirroring travelers' movements, other times diverging and vanishing into the mist. The cabins, though empty, retain traces of life, faint impressions of furniture, the distant echo of steps, and a lingering suggestion of presences once human. The summit feels like a living memory, its atmosphere shaped by both nature and something unseen. Visitors report that the summit-esque influence is subtle but pervasive. The cold drafts brush against their necks or shoulders unexpectedly, and shapes flicker across windows or behind trees. Some feel a gentle tug, as if being drawn toward hidden clearings or secluded cabins. The experience is immersive, pulling the senses into heightened awareness, where every sound, movement, and shadow carry significance. Even those who attempt to dismiss what they see cannot shake the impression that Mistwood Summit holds more than meets the eye. As dawn approaches, the fog begins to lift slightly, revealing the contours of the summit and the remnants of trails winding through the forest. Lanterns that flickered in the night dim to nothing, and shadows retreat into corners, leaving only the natural quiet of trees and earth. Travelers leave with memories of glimpses and sensations that cannot be fully articulated. The summit remains, patient and silent, waiting for the next visitor to step along its paths, to feel the chill and to glimpse figures just beyond sight. Mistwood Summit endures as a place of quiet mystery, where fog, shadow, and light converge to create an atmosphere that is both captivating and unsettling. Each path and cabin tells a story without words, and each flicker of a lantern or movement in a window invites exploration. And each flicker of a lantern or movement in a window invites exploration. The summit's presence lingers, a reminder that some places hold echoes of the unseen, spaces where curiosity and caution intertwine, and where the boundary between the known and the unknown is always just a step away. Hollow Crest sits quietly on a hill, its streets winding between centuries-old buildings whose stones have weathered countless seasons. The town carries a stillness that feels almost sacred, but beneath it lies an undercurrent of whispers, soft and persistent, drifting through alleyways and across the cracked pavement. Visitors often notice the faint hum of voices in the distance, a murmur that grows stronger as night falls, echoing off the walls of the empty structures. At the center of Hollow Crest stands its oldest church, a towering structure of stone and stained glass. By day, it seems abandoned, silent except for the occasional creak of weathered wood. By night, the building comes alive in ways that defy explanation. Whispers move through the nave, drifting from pews that have long been unused. Some travelers speak of hearing names called softly, as if the church itself remembers those who once gathered within its walls. Near the bell tower, shadows often appear, climbing steps and fading into darkness before anyone can approach. The figures are indistinct, fleeting glimpses at the edge of vision, yet their presence is undeniable. A chill seems to follow those who linger too long, a sensation of being watched by eyes unseen. The air thickens with anticipation, and each footstep on the old stone pathways feels heavier, as if the town is aware of every movement. Hollow Crest narrow streets wind around forgotten courtyards and small gardens, overgrown with ivy and weeds that have claimed old stone fences. Lanterns hanging along the streets flicker, though no one tends them, casting shadows that seem to move independently. Every building, every cobblestone, seems to hold a memory, replaying fragments of lives long past for anyone attuned to the whispers in the air. At night, the town feels suspended in time. The atmosphere is melancholic, mysterious, and supernaturally dreadful. Explorers and travelers describe fleeting figures that move silently through the town. Some appear at windows, staring for a brief moment before vanishing into walls. Others are seen along rooftops or descending stairways that lead nowhere. The movement is fluid and deliberate, creating the impression of a town that is alive, in ways hidden from ordinary perception. The deeper one ventures into Hollow Crest, the stronger the feeling becomes, that the boundaries between the living and the unseen are thin and permeable. In the churchyard, gravestones tilt with age and moss covers the oldest markers. Shadows flit between the monuments, lingering for a moment near names etched in stone. Some visitors have reported hearing bells ring softly without cause, a mournful tone that seems to resonate through the air and into the hills surrounding Hollow Crest. Lantern lights flow among the graves, illuminating narrow paths that lead to forgotten corners of the town, guiding travelers while also warning them of unseen presences. Abandoned homes line the outskirts of Hollow Crest, their windows dark, their doors ajar. Inside, the air feels heavy with memory. Whispered conversations seem to drift from rooms that have not been occupied for decades. Steps echo along staircases when no one climbs them, and a faint outline of figures appears at the edge of vision, vanishing when approached. The town seems to remember everything, recording every visitora-esque footsteps, holding them within its shadowed streets and empty rooms. As night deepens, the whispers grow clearer, carrying fragments of stories and names long forgotten. Figures move along the bell towers and church steps, their presence felt rather than seen, urging travelers to notice and respect the town's secrets. Lanterns appear along narrow alleys, moving without source, casting light on paths that twist and turn unpredictably. Every corner holds a sense of history. Every shadow carries a tale that refuses to be silenced. Hollow Crest is more than a town. It is a living memory. The church, the streets, and the overgrown gardens all exist in a delicate balance between the ordinary and the spectral. Travelers find themselves drawn into its rhythm, caught between curiosity and caution. Every whisper, every shadow, and every lantern seems to guide the visitor deeper into understanding the town's hidden life. Yet it also reminds them that Hollowcrest is a place that guards its secrets closely. Visitors leave Hollowcrest with a feeling of having walked through more than a town. They carry with them the memory of shadows climbing unseen steps, of whispers drifting through empty churches, and of lanterns that light paths where no one walks. The town watches silently, recording every presence, holding every footstep in its memory. Hollowcrest is alive in ways that defy reason, a place where the living and the unseen coexist in quiet tension, and where the past never truly lets go. Even as dawn approaches, the whispers linger, retreating slowly into the stone walls and bell towers. Shadows vanish from steps and rooftops, yet the town remains vigilant, ready to greet the next traveler who ventures into its streets. Hollowcrest endures, a timeless place of mystery, memory, and quiet guardianship, where every building, every path, and every shadow tells a story waiting to be discovered by those who dare to listen. Dark Spire rises on a steep hill, its silhouette cutting sharply against the dim glow of the evening sky. Below, the forest spreads in dark, undulating waves, each tree seeming to shift with a life of its own. Branches twist and sway even without wind, casting shadows that stretch across the undergrowth and creep toward the edges of the abandoned town at the hill's base. The forest feels alive in ways that are difficult to define. Leaves whisper in patterns that suggest presence, and shadows move where no light should reach. Travelers often report the sensation of being observed, a subtle pressure that brushes against the senses, hinting at hidden forms moving just beyond vision. The natural sounds of rustling branches and distant wildlife blend seamlessly with something else here and almost imperceptible, a murmur that seems to originate from deep within the trees themselves. The town on the hill is quiet, though it is anything but lifeless. Figures sometimes appear on rooftops, motionless and pale, visible only for a moment before vanishing into the dimness. Their presence is fleeting yet unnerving, a reminder that Dark Spire is not completely abandoned. Shadows gather along broken fences, cracked walkways, and decaying rooftops, forming shapes that the eye struggles to recognize. Streets wind tightly between houses, their facades aged and worn. Windows are dark, and some are shattered, allowing the forest fog and mist to spill inside. Doors hang unevenly on rusted hinges, and chipped paint curls in long strips, revealing what weathered by years of neglect. Even as the structures appear still, the air is filled with subtle motion. Leaves drift through open spaces, and loose debris rustles as though stirred by invisible hands. Whispers echo through the town, carried from street to street, from tree to tree. They are faint and fragmented, rising and falling unpredictably. At times, they seem to call names or mimic the soft intonations of human conversation. Travelers pause to listen, unsure if the sounds are real or conjured by the imagination, yet the persistence of these echoes leaves an undeniable impression. Lanterns or faint glows occasionally flicker across rooftops and along narrow alleyways. Light appears and vanishes without source, revealing glimpses of motion where none should exist. Every shimmer or shadow suggests life, yet direct observation proves fleeting. The town, the hill, and the forest work together to create an environment where perception is constantly challenged, blending reality and imagination into a seamless experience. The forest below the town exerts a subtle influence on anyone who approaches. Trees bend toward paths as though guiding travelers, or perhaps observing them. Fog coils along roots and branches, slipping into the gaps between rocks and foliage, creating visual illusions that shift with every step. Even sounds seem altered here. The snap of a twig or rustle of leaves carries an unusual resonance, amplified in ways that evoke both wonder and unease. Figures on rooftops maintain their presence as silent observers. They do not move aggressively, but their stillness and timing create the impression of deliberate attention. Shadows stretch across streets and over open courtyards, forming shapes that merge with the natural play of fog and light. Observers quickly realize that Darkspire is not merely a collection of empty structures and trees. It is an environment that actively interacts with those who enter, offering glimpses, hints, and moments of subtle interaction. Time feels altered in this place. Moments seem to expand and contract. Every corner turned and every shadow glimpsed, as if the town and forest remember all who pass through and respond quietly to their presence. Even as travelers move away from the hill, the impression of Darkspire remains vivid. The flickering figures, shifting shadows, whispering trees, and the subtle sense of being watched. The forest and town form an inseparable landscape of mystery, where the ordinary world blends with subtle suggestion and quiet tension. Darkspire endures as a place where forest and architecture merge, creating an environment alive with memory and unseen activity. Figures on rooftops, whispers from the trees, and the gently shifting fog combine to form a narrative that is immersive, mysterious, and unforgettable. Visitors leave with the awareness that some places, though silent and abandoned, continue to breathe, observe, and hold fragments of presence, waiting for those who are willing to notice. Ghost Ridge sits perched on a windswept hill, a town caught between the past and a lingering presence that refuses to fade. The streets are narrow, lined with aged buildings whose windows are dark and doorways sag under decades of neglect. Even in daylight, the town feels subdued, but night transforms into a landscape alive with subtle movement and whispered stories. Visitors to Ghost Ridge often speak of figures appearing in abandoned inns. They are fleeting glimpses, sometimes caught in hallways or at the edge of staircases. The shapes are indistinct, humanoid yet ethereal, their presence marked more by the sense of being observed than by clear sight. Each encounter leaves a chilling impression, as if the town itself is aware of intruders and is quietly acknowledging them. Lantern lights are another phenomenon reported in the town. They float independently, drifting in patterns that defy explanation, illuminating areas for a moment before disappearing into darkness. These lanterns seem to guide the eye, drawing attention to architectural details and forgotten spaces. Yet their origin remains a mystery, adding to the haunting atmosphere of Ghost Ridge. Cold touches and sudden gusts of wind accompany many visits. Travelers report a chill brushing against their arms, or a brief gust that seems to come from nowhere, stirring dust and loose papers. These experiences are subtle yet unmistakable, enhancing the feeling that the town is alive with invisible energy. Every sound of the creak of floorboards, the rattle of a shutter, the sigh of the wind through narrow streets contributes to a pervasive sense of presence, making each step both suspenseful and compelling. The inns themselves are central to the town's reputation. Once bustling with activity, they now stand silent, yet carry the echoes of past lives. Furniture is overturned, carpets are faded, and wallpaper peels in curling strips. Despite the neglect, the buildings feel inhabited. Shadows move just beyond clear sight, and distant footsteps sometimes accompany visitors as they navigate empty corridors. These experiences are often accompanied by the subtle flicker of lantern light, revealing the contours of hallways and rooms for a fleeting moment before the glow vanishes. Even the streets of Ghost Ridge hold stories. Cobblestones are uneven, creating a rhythm of sound as footsteps echo. Figures are sometimes seen walking in alleyways or crossing squares, only to vanish when approached. The town-esque layout contributes to the sensation of disorientation, with narrow passageways, unexpected turns, and the subtle echo of sounds that seem closer than they are. Travelers speak of feeling watched, as though the town itself is observing and responding to their movements with quiet attention. The outskirts of Ghost Ridge add another layer to the experience. Overgrown gardens and rusted fences frame the town, blending natural decay with human absence. Figures are occasionally glimpsed moving among the undergrowth, drifting along paths that once connected homes and workshops. The mist often rises here in the early hours, thickening the air and creating a visual landscape in which shadows can appear and vanish with ease. Some visitors have felt invisible hands brush against them, tugging lightly as if guiding or warning them. Nightfall heightens every sensation in Ghost Ridge. The combination of dim moonlight, flickering lanterns, and long shadows cast by derelict buildings amplifies perception. Subtle movements become pronounced. Faint sounds resonate through corridors and streets, and every corner seems to hide possibility. This creates a sense of suspense and anticipation, drawing people further into the town-esque narrative. The town square often serves as a focal point for reported activity. The fountain is dry, its basin cracked and weathered, yet figures are seen standing around it, silent and motionless. Shadows flit along the edges, interacting with light in ways that defy explanation. The surrounding buildings, from the old bakery to the deserted market, seem to hum with subtle energy. Even the wind through broken windows carries a cadence that makes the space feel alive, reinforcing the impression that Ghost Ridge exists in a liminal state between the living and the unseen. Architecture amplifies the haunting qualities of town. Rusted balconies, tilting shutters, and sagging roofs suggest abandonment, while hinting at continued occupancy by invisible residents. Broken lanterns hang from brackets, swaying gently in drafts, casting fleeting light across peeling paint and warped wood. Each detail contributes to the atmosphere, encouraging visitors to notice subtle movements, shadows, and sounds that might otherwise go unnoticed. The overall experience of Ghost Ridge is immersive and multisensory. Light and shadow, sound and silence, movement and stillness all intertwine to create a living narrative. Figures, whether fleetingly seen or felt through touch, contribute to an ongoing story of presence and memory. Whispers seem to drift through hallways and alleys, calling attention to spaces long abandoned but still vital in the perception of those who explore them. Ultimately, Ghost Ridge is more than its empty buildings and quiet streets. It is a place where history and memory converge, with subtle manifestations of energy, creating an atmosphere that is both captivating and unnerving. Each encounter, whether visual, auditory, or tactile, adds to a layered narrative that travelers carry with them long after leaving the town. Visitors depart with impressions that linger, recalling the sensation of cold touches, fleeting lantern lights, and figures appearing and vanishing in hallways. Ghost Ridge remains etched in memory as a town where the past walks beside the present, and where every shadow and whisper tells a story waiting to be discovered. The town endures as a place of mystery and quiet presence, inviting exploration while holding its secrets close. Each street, alley, and building contributes to a cinematic, immersive experience that leave a lasting impression and ensures that Ghost Ridge remains unforgettable for those who dare to wander its haunted paths. Fog Hill rests beneath a shroud of mist that never fully lifts. The town streets twist and narrow, lined with buildings worn by time and moisture. Windows glisten with condensation, and alleyways vanish into a thick haze. That blurs the edges of reality. Daylight struggles to penetrate the dense fog, and shadows seem to linger long after any passerby has moved on. Travelers entering Fog Hill immediately notice the weight of silence. The fog absorbs sound, yet faint echoes persist. Steps taken along cobblestone streets are met with whispers that do not belong to anyone visible. Some report hearing distant cries, muffled yet distinct, carried through the mist with an unsettling clarity. The air feels damp and heavy, pressing against skin and lungs as though the town itself breathes slowly around its visitors. Figures appear unpredictably within the fog. Some stand at the end of narrow alleyways, motionless, their forms indistinct and fleeting. Others move quietly along streets, keeping pace with travelers before vanishing when approached. The effect is disorienting. A simple walk through the town becomes a test of perception, a challenge to distinguish between what is tangible and what is imagined. Eyes catch shapes in peripheral vision only to find emptiness when attention turns. A test of perception, a challenge to distinguish between what is tangible and what is imagined. Fagilla-esque buildings tell stories of abandonment and neglect. Peeling paint, sagging roofs, and broken signs mark businesses and homes left behind. Yet within these structures, subtle activity is sensed. Doors creak as though recently used, floorboards groan beneath invisible steps. An occasional flicker of light shines through fog-covered windows. These glimpses of life, though uncertain, suggest the town is inhabited in ways that defy ordinary explanation. Visitors walking the main streets describe the sensation of being watched. Shadows shift along walls, and mist seems to gather around certain corners, thickening and swirling with intention. Some feel soft brushes of air against the back of their necks, fleeting touches that vanish as quickly as they are noticed. Footsteps echo behind them, sometimes matching their own pace, sometimes diverging into other paths, giving the impression of unseen companions. The alleyways of Fog Hill are particularly enigmatic. Narrow, winding, and often pitch dark, they harbor figures that appear and disappear with no warning. A visitor may glimpse someone crouched near a doorway, only for them to dissolve into the surrounding fog moments later. Eyes feel drawn to shapes that do not remain still. Lanterns or dim lights appear in unexpected places, illuminating walls and puddles, then vanish without source. Each alley seems alive, responsive to the presence of those who wander through it. Fog Hill's fog has a hypnotic quality. Muffles sound, softens edges, and bends perception. The cries heard are rarely identifiable, carrying the emotional weight of distress, yet providing no context. Footsteps may seem distant one moment, and suddenly close the next. Some explorers report that the mist thickens as they advance, guiding them toward corners or side streets they did not intend to follow. This subtle manipulation enhances the sense that the town itself participates in the unfolding experience. The town-esque atmosphere is amplified at night. The fog deepens, shadows lengthen, and the outlines of buildings blur into a seamless gray. Figures appear with greater frequency, moving slowly along streets, pausing at intersections, or standing at the edges of alleyways. Their movements are fluid, yet impossible to identify clearly. The town-esque silence is punctuated by soft, unsettling noisesa, an unseen door closing, the faint scuff of a shoe, or a whispered breath carried through the fog. Travelers often describe a sense of time stretching in Fog Hill. Minutes feel like hours as they navigate its winding streets. Familiar landmarks shift subtly, paths seem to extend beyond memory, and the fog reshapes the environment in real time. This temporal distortion, combined with the constant presence of fleeting figures and whispered sounds, reinforces the town's eerie and otherworldly nature. Even those with strong, rational minds find their senses questioned and their perceptions stretched. As the fog reshapes the environment, the atmosphere is a mix of fear, confusion, and awe. Despite its mysteries, Fog Hill holds a strange allure. The combination of fog, shadows, and subtle movements creates an immersive experience. Each step, each sound, and each figure glimpse contributes to a narrative, shaped by both the town and the visitor. A delicate balance between the real and the imagined. By dawn, the fog remains, though light begins to soften its edges. Shapes retreat, and the cries and footsteps fade, leaving only the natural quiet of an abandoned town. Travelers depart with a lingering sense of unease and wonder, carrying memories of fleeting figures, shifting shadows, and the cold, damp air that seems to linger long after leaving. Fog Hill endures as a place where mystery and atmosphere converge, a town where the unseen is always present, and where every path, every alley, and every whisper invites exploration beyond the ordinary. Hollow Pines lies shrouded in mist, a small town encircled by cemeteries whose headstones rise like silent sentinels among the trees. The fog rolls in from the surrounding forest, curling through narrow streets and around the old stone walls, giving the town a feeling of stillness that is almost unnatural. Travelers often sense an unseen presence here, a quiet weight that seems to follow each step along the paths. The cemeteries themselves are vast, stretching beyond sight. Weathered gravestones lean at odd angles, moss creeping over inscriptions that have long been forgotten. Figures of mourners appear among the stones, standing silently. Their outlines faint and shifting with the fog. They move without sound, and their presence is felt more than seen. A weight on the chest that grows heavier the longer one lingers. Some visitors have described the sensation of being watched, of eyes unseen tracing their movements as they navigate between the graves. Lantern lights float through the mist, appearing along narrow pathways where no one walks. They bob and sway as though carried by invisible hands, illuminating patches of fog in a pale, otherworldly glow. Some travelers have tried to follow these lights, drawn by curiosity or the hope of understanding, only to find the lanterns vanish just beyond reach, leaving nothing but cold air and an unsettling silence. The fog seems to thicken around these moments, hiding shapes that shift at the edge of vision. The town itself is quiet, its buildings old and silent. Its buildings old and silent. Its buildings old and silent wooden houses with peeling paint and shuttered windows. Its buildings old and silent wooden houses with peeling paint and shuttered windows line streets. Its buildings old and silent wooden houses with peeling paint and shuttered windows line streets that wind unevenly. Its buildings old and silent wooden houses with peeling paint and shuttered windows line streets that wind unevenly through hollow pines. The atmosphere feels suspended, a blend of memory and presence that refuses to yield to explanation every corner, every alley. At night, the fog becomes a living entity. Whispers drift across the streets, soft and unintelligible, yet familiar in cadence. They rise from the cemeteries and settle into the town, moving with the wind. Some travelers hear names spoken, barely audible, as though the town itself is calling to them. Shapes emerge at the edge of vision of figures that vanish when approached, leaving behind only the impression of a presence. These shadows move fluidly between gravestones, lanterns, and trees, guiding the observer to the town as quiet corridors of memory. The forest surrounding hollow pines seems part of the town as haunting. Between the trunks, figures appear, fleeting glimpses of forms that vanish as quickly as they are seen. The fog threads through the forest, creating tunnels of mist that obscure sight and distort perception. Travelers often report a sensation of being followed, or of something moving just beyond the limits of their vision, keeping pace without ever revealing itself fully. Ancient gravestones and mausoleums speak of generations past. Symbols and carvings worn smooth by time-hinted lives filled with love, loss, and rituals long forgotten. The mourners among the stones repeat gestures endlessly, standing watch over the living as well as the dead. Some travelers have paused, frozen in place, sensing an unseen connection between the town and the figures that roam among the graves. The air here carries stories heavy and silent that seem to seep into the mind and linger long after leaving hollow pines. Lanterns drifting to the fog cast light over paths and tombs, revealing glimpses of the town hidden during the day. Wooden crosses, wrought iron fences, and crumbling stonework are momentarily illuminated, giving the observer fleeting clarity before darkness returns. Visitors speak of the sensation of being guided or warned, as though the lights themselves possess intention. Each lantern appears briefly, then disappears, leaving a lingering echo of movement and the sensation that the town eyes never leave those who wander. Hollow Pines does not demand attention. It insists upon it. The quiet, the fog, and the floating lanterns create an atmosphere that is simultaneously inviting and forbidding. Travelers feel drawn into the rhythm of the town, its slow pulse of memory and presence. Every shadow, every whisper, every faint glimmer of light contributes to the story that Hollow Pines tells, a narrative that blends the lives of the parted with the curiosity of the living. Even as dawn approaches, the fog persists, holding the town in its soft embrace. Shadows retreat slightly, figures vanish into the mist, and lanterns fade with the coming light. Yet Hollow Pines does not relinquish its hold entirely. Whispers linger in the streets and between trees, memories of those who stood among the graves and watched silently. The town remains a place suspended between worlds, a town that carries its past and its watchers with quiet vigilance. Visitors leave Hollow Pines carrying the weight of what they have seen and sensed. Shadows at the edge of vision, lanterns floating without source, and mourners standing silently among the stones are images that remain vivid, etched into memory. The town keeps its secrets well, yet shares fragments with those who are attentive, offering glimpses into a world where the living and the unseen coexist. Hollow Pines endures, timeless and mysterious, a place where every step, every whisper, and every flickering light tells a story that will not be forgotten. Dark Hollow's summit rises abruptly above the surrounding valleys, its streets winding tightly between weathered homes and abandoned shops. The town is cloaked in a persistent mist that swirls along rooftops and creeps into doorways. Every corner seems to hold a secret, and every shadow appears to shift just beyond the edge of perception. The air carries a low hum of whispers, barely audible at first, as if the town itself is speaking to those who wander its paths. Visitors entering Dark Hollow's summit immediately feel a change in atmosphere. The fog clings to clothing and skin, carrying with it a subtle chill that sinks deep into the bones. Footsteps echo unnaturally along cracked pavements and uneven cobblestones. The town seems alive with unseen motion, an invisible presence that observes quietly, moving just out of sight. Figures appear intermittently, climbing along rooftops or standing silently in the middle of streets. They are pale, indistinct shapes that vanish when approached, leaving behind only the lingering sense of being watched. These appearances are fleeting but persistent, creating an uneasy rhythm that follows visitors as they navigate the twisting lanes. Shadows stretch and fold along walls and doorways, forming shapes that suggest life, then dissolve into the fog moments later. The buildings themselves tell stories of a past long abandoned yet not forgotten. Wooden facades sag under the weight of time, paint peels in long strips, and shattered windows allow mist to slip inside. Interiors are dark and still, yet the faint sound of movement sometimes drifts out. Floorboards creak in places where no one walks, and the occasional rustle of objects unsettles even the most cautious observer. Whispers thread through the town, carried unpredictably by the wind. They rise from empty streets, echo from alleys, and drift from open windows. Some seem to mimic human voices, uttering fragments of conversation or soft, almost indecipherable names. The effect is subtle yet constant, a reminder that Dark Hollow's summit is alive with memory and unseen presence. Lanterns or faint glows sometimes appear along streets or atop rooftops, though no source can be identified. Light flickers across crumbling walls and warped shutters, revealing fleeting movement where none should exist. Shadows bend and twist with each shift of the mist, creating illusions that are difficult to distinguish from reality. Every glance toward a window or doorway invites a question. Is what is seen real, or merely the trick of fog and perception? Travelers often report the sensation of being followed. A subtle pressure brushes across the skin, like icy hands passing too close, yet no one is visible. Figures may appear in the corner of vision, vanish when looked at directly, and reappear elsewhere moments later. The town seems to guide attention, drawing observers into a pattern of observation and awareness that is both captivating and unnerving. Dark Hollow's summit is alive in sound as well as movement. Leaves rustle in silent courtyards, distant doors creak open and close, and soft, faint footsteps accompany the wanderer along empty lanes. Each sound is amplified in the stillness, creating a layered auditory experience that reinforces a sense of presence and memory embedded in the town. Every whisper, every rustle, and every subtle movement contributes to an atmosphere of tension and curiosity. Time behaves strangely within the town. Moments stretch and contract unpredictably, leaving visitors disoriented yet attentive. Streets that seem short on arrival may feel endless upon exploration, and familiar buildings can appear altered in subtle ways. The combination of fog, shadows, and fleeting figures creates a continuous narrative that unfolds as travelers move through the town. A story written in perception rather than words. Figures on rooftops, shadows along streets, and the icy pressure of unseen hands create an immersive experience that lingers long after leaving Dark Hollow summit. The town exists as a threshold between the ordinary and the extraordinary, where memory, presence, and subtle activity merge into a single, cohesive environment. Every turn and glance offers a possibility of witnessing movement, sound, or light that challenges understanding and evokes wonder. Even after leaving the summit, the impressions remain. The whispers, flickering lights, and the sensation of unseen observation occupy the mind. Dark Hollow's summit becomes more than a location, a place where the invisible is acknowledged, and every step tells a story. Visitors leave with a sense that some towns, though quiet and seemingly abandoned, continue to live quietly, observing all who enter, and holding fragments of memory and presence suspended in the air. Dark Hollow's summit endures as a testament to subtle mystery and persistent presence. Its fog-laden streets, weather homes, silent rooftops, and whispering winds create a landscape alive with unseen activity. Those who wander through it find themselves part of an unfolding narrative, guided by shadow, light, and mist, and carrying with them the realization that some places, though deserted by time, never truly empty themselves of memory or watchfulness. Shadow Crest rises atop a lonely hill, its slopes dotted with abandoned schools and houses that have long since fallen silent. The buildings stand as hollow reminders of lives once lived, their windows dark and doors hanging loosely on rusted hinges. Even in daylight, the town emanates a quiet unease, but as evening falls, the hill becomes a place where shadows stretch and whispers seem to drift along the empty streets. Visitors to Shadow Crest often speak of figures appearing in hallways. They are fleeting glimpses, seen at the edge of vision or reflected in broken windows. These figures move with purpose, as though continuing tasks from a time long gone. Sometimes they pause, linger, and vanish when approached, leaving no trace but a lingering chill in the air. The sensation is subtle yet unmistakable, a quiet acknowledgement that the town is aware of intruders and is quietly observing their presence. Whispers and footsteps are reported throughout Shadow Crest, with no apparent source. The sound of footsteps on cracked floors or the faint murmur of voices creates an unsettling rhythm, amplifying perception that the town itself is alive with unseen residents. These auditory experiences blend seamlessly with the physical environment, reinforcing the impression that Shadow Crest is suspended between past and present. The abandoned schools are central to the town's eerie atmosphere. Desks are overturned, chalkboards are scarred, and corridors stretch into shadowed corners. Figures are sometimes glimpsed in these spaces, walking among the decayed remnants of education. The sound of laughter, whispered words, or hurried steps seem to originate from classrooms long empty, heightening the sense of mystery. Visitors often describe a feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes follow them to the hallways, quietly observing every movement. Houses on the hill contribute equally to the haunting narrative. Roofs sag under the weight of neglect, and windows stare blankly onto overgrown yards. Shadows move behind curtains that sway in the evening breeze, and faint sounds of daily life echo from rooms that have been empty for decades. Some travelers report glimpsing figures performing mundane tasks, such as sweeping floors or opening doors, only for the vision to vanish when approached. This interplay of presence and absence makes each step through Shadow Crest a tense and compelling experience. The streets themselves add to the town's unsettling charm. Patches of uneven pavement and rusted gates create unexpected echoes. Figures are occasionally seen crossing alleys or standing motionless at intersections, disappearing as soon as they are directly observed. The layout of Shadow Crest, with its winding paths and scattered buildings, encourages disorientation, making even familiar locations feel unfamiliar. Visitors often report an acute awareness of their surroundings, with every sound and shadow heightened by the town's quiet intensity. Nightfall intensifies the experiences of those who wander Shadow Crest. Moonlight filters through broken windows, casting long, shifting shadows across hallways and streets. Whispers seem to rise from floorboards and walls. Footsteps echo across empty corridors, and figures can be glimpsed moving silently in and out of sight. Time itself seems altered, stretching and compressing unpredictably, reinforcing the sense that Shadow Crest exists in a liminal space where reality and memory intertwine. The Hilltop provides vantage points where visitors can survey the scattered buildings, their silhouettes framed against the night sky. From this perspective, Shadow Crest resembles a town frozen in decay, yet alive with unseen energy. Figures appear to traverse rooftops or cross streets in ways that defy explanation. The wind carries soft murmurs, amplifying the impression that the town communicates subtly through touch, sound, and sight, reminding those who wander here that they are never truly alone. Architecture plays a crucial role in the town's haunting qualities. Rusted balconies, warped doors, and leaning fences suggest abandonment, while simultaneously hinting at continued presence. Broken lanterns sway in drafts, casting fleeting light on peeling paint and cracked walls. Every detail encourages careful observation, revealing movement, shadow, and sound in spaces that appear lifeless at first glance. This dynamic interplay between environment and perception draws visitors deeper into the story of Shadow Crest. Ultimately, Shadow Crest is more than its empty buildings and silent streets, where history lingers in every corner, where echoes of past lives manifest in subtle yet profound ways. Figures, sounds, and sensations converge to create an immersive experience, compelling visitors to engage with the town's narrative. Each encounter, whether visual, auditory, or tactile, contributes to a layered story that continues long after the hill is left behind. Visitors depart with impressions that linger, recalling footsteps in empty hallways, shadows moving behind curtains, and whispers from rooms long uninhabited. Shadow Crest remains etched in memory as a town where the past and present coexist, where every hallway, street, and building carries a story, and where the quiet presence of unseen residents leaves an indelible mark on those who dare to explore its haunting paths. The town endures as a place of mystery and subtle energy, inviting curiosity while keeping its secrets closely guarded. Each building, alley, an abandoned classroom forms part of a cinematic, immersive experience that lingers in the imagination, ensuring that Shadow Crest is unforgettable for anyone who ventures into its quiet, spectral world. Phantom Knoll sits quietly beneath a thick canopy of trees. The forest surrounding the town is dense, the branches intertwining to block sunlight and create shadows that seem to shift with each passing moment. Mist lingers low along the roads, curling around the bases of trees and stretching across abandoned paths. The air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, carrying an eerie stillness that unsettles visitors from the moment they arrive. Travelers quickly notice the peculiar movements within the fog. Figures appear along roads, distant at first, then closer with subtle, almost deliberate motion. They remain indistinct, cloaked by mist, yet their presence is undeniable. Approaching them proves impossible. By the time one attempts to step forward, the figures dissolve, absorbed by the thick air, leaving nothing but emptiness and the echo of the visitor's own heartbeat. Lanterns float across abandoned paths without source or explanation. Soft glows hover among the trees, casting shifting shadows that stretch unnaturally across the undergrowth. These lights move as if guided by unseen hands, drifting closer or retreating as visitors walk, creating a delicate tension between curiosity and caution. Some report following a lantern for several moments, only for it to vanish into the mist, leaving the path dark and quiet once more. The town itself is shrouded in a quiet desolation. Wooden houses and structures show signs of decay, their paint peeling, roofs sagging, and windows shattered. Despite the neglect, a strange sense of life pervades the area. Doors creak intermittently as if recently used, floors groan under invisible weight, and faint shadows cross windows, reflecting shapes that belong to no one present. Every corner of Phantom Knoll seems to suggest movement, even in complete stillness. The forest adds to the otherworldly atmosphere. Branches sway without wind, and the mist thickens in certain areas, shaping paths that appear and disappear, as if the land itself resists being traversed. Visitors often report soft whispers carried along the breeze. yet persistent enough to provoke unease. Footsteps echo behind them along empty roads, matching their pace or diverging unpredictably, creating a sense that the forest watches and responds. Some explorers describe sudden shifts in perception within Phantom Knoll. A tree line may appear familiar, yet on closer inspection, it has changed, revealing an unmarked trail or an unexpected clearing. Sounds of movement seem to originate from every direction, yet no one is visible. Lanterns may float above a road, then vanish as one approaches, leaving the observer questioning the boundaries between reality and illusion. The nighttime environment intensifies the town's eerie qualities. Shadows deepen and fog becomes denser, reducing visibility to mere feet. Figures become more pronounced, standing at the edge of roads or among trees, their presence fleeting yet compelling. Lanterns drift in synchronized patterns along abandoned paths, illuminating the surrounding forest in spectral hues. The atmosphere grows heavy, and every sound is magnified to the snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the soft footfalls of an unseen presence. Travelers often experience the sensation of being guided or led by something unseen. Paths seem to twist unexpectedly, drawing visitors toward areas they might have overlooked. Shadows may stretch along the forest floor, guiding the eye or creating the impression of motion where none exists. Some feel icy drafts along their skin or the subtle brush of fingers along their shoulders, brief but unmistakable, leaving a lingering awareness of forces at work beyond ordinary perception. The interplay of light and mist creates a cinematic environment within Phantom Knoll. Lanterns cast elongated shadows, fog diffuses illumination, and distant figures appear and disappear in a rhythm that is impossible to predict. Every step through the town and forest feels like a negotiation with the unknown, a careful balance between curiosity and caution. Explorers describe an intoxicating sense of presence, as if the land and its spirits are aware of their passage and choose when and how to reveal themselves. As dawn approaches, the forest begins to lighten, but the mist persists, clinging to roads and tree trunks. Figures vanish with the coming light, and lanterns cease their spectral wandering. Yet, the sensation of being observed lingers, and the forest retains a subtle, watchful stillness. Visitors leave Phantom Knoll with a mixture of awe and unease, carrying the memory of figures in mist, floating lanterns, shifting shadows, and a forest that seems alive with quiet, intangible energy. Phantom Knoll endures as a place of mystery, where the natural and the supernatural blend, blending seamlessly. The forest, mist, and abandoned paths combine to create an immersive experience that challenges perception and invites exploration. Every visitor becomes part of the story, moving through a landscape where shadows, light, and the whisper of unseen presences converge, leaving an indelible impression of a place where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. Final Hollow Hill rises above the surrounding landscape, its slopes shrouded in mist and shadow. The hilltop overlooks the valleys below, yet its presence dominates everything, drawing the eye with an unsettling stillness. Travelers often approach with curiosity, unaware of the weight of history that presses down from its heights. The fog moves across the hill like a living veil, curling around rocks, trees, and the remnants of paths that have long been abandoned. Figures appear along the hilltop, moving with an unnatural fluidity. Townspeople frozen in memory wander among the rocks and trees, their outlines fading at the edges as though formed from the mist itself. Children run between old stone markers and broken benches, their laughter echoing faintly, yet never reaching the ear fully. Travelers report catching glimpses of figures that vanish when approached, leaving only the sense that something unseen has passed by. The history of Final Hollow Hill is woven into the landscape. Every stone and tree carries the weight of events long past, moments that refuse to be forgotten. Visitors feel a tension in the air, a subtle pressure that seems to follow their steps. Whispers rise from a hill, soft and unintelligible, brushing against the ears of those who wander too close. Names are sometimes spoken, carried on the wind, as though the hill itself is aware of every arrival. Lantern lights drift along the slopes without source, illuminating patches of fog in a spectral glow. They appear and vanish with no pattern, guiding the observer along paths that may no longer exist. Some travelers are drawn to these lights, their curiosity compelling them forward, only to find the glow disappears, leaving them alone with shadows and the constant hum of the unseen. The hill seems alive, aware of its visitors, and patient in the way it observes each step taken. Figures of travelers, both past and present, appear and mingle. They move silently across the hilltop, climbing slopes and navigating broken paths, as if following routines long forgotten. The air is heavy with anticipation, the kind that settles in the chest and lingers with every breath. Some visitors have reported vanishing entirely, swallowed by the mist, only to reappear hours later disoriented and pale. Others are never seen again, becoming part of the hill's ever-growing story. Trees sway despite the absence of wind, their branches bending and creaking in ways that defy explanation. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the ground, sometimes forming shapes that seem to mimic human gestures. Rocks that appear solid shift subtly, creating an impression of movement just beyond perception. The hill is a place of constant tension, a landscape where the natural and the supernatural intersect, blending memory and presence into an immersive experience that few forget. Visitors often feel the presence of the unseen, a brush of cold air, the sensation of being followed, or the soft pressure of invisible hands. The hill responds to their presence, almost as if testing their resolve. Every step is measured, every pause observed, yet the watchers remain just out of sight. The fog thickens at unexpected moments, shaping itself around the Traveller-esque path and creating a sense of enclosure, of being drawn deeper into the Hilla-esque embrace. At twilight, the hill transforms. Shadows lengthen and merge the mist. Figures become more distinct, and the lantern lights shine brighter against the encroaching darkness. Childrena-esque laughter rises and falls, echoing across the slopes, while the figures of townspeople move slowly among the stones. Observers often feel that they are not alone, that every glance is met by unseen eyes, and every sound carries significance. The hill holds its history in layers, waiting to reveal itself to those who dare to remain. The hilltop itself is scattered with remnants of the past. Figures navigate these remnants effortlessly, moving between the old and the present. Travelers report that sometimes the figures pause and watch, as though assessing whether the visitor is to be guided, warned, or claimed as part of Hilla-esque's enduring presence. Final Hollow Hill does not forget. It remembers each footstep, each voice, and each presence that crosses its slopes. The spirits guard the hill, ensuring the history remains alive and tangible for anyone who dares to approach. Some visitors leave with nothing more than stories, haunted memories, and the feeling of unseen eyes upon them. Others vanish, becoming part of the hill itself, their figures joining the spectral crowds that roam the summit in silence. The mist never fully lifts, and the lanterns never cease their drift. Figures continue their endless wandering, children and townspeople alike. Whispers rise from the fog, carrying the weight of memory and the vigilance of those who remain. The hill is timeless, a place where the living and the unseen converge, where curiosity and history intersect, and where every visitor becomes part of the enduring story. Final Hollow Hill stands as the most haunted of all, a sentinel of memory and presence. Its spirits keep watch, guarding the hilltop and its dark history with quiet, unyielding persistence. Travelers are drawn to it, challenged by it, and sometimes claimed by it. Yet the hill endures, carrying its stories, its watchers, and its mysteries through every fog-laden night. We have walked through 25 haunted hilltop towns in Virginia. Each town is alive with shadows, whispers, and the spirits of the past. The streets, homes, and cemeteries are not just empty structuresa. They are living memories where the dead linger, and the living are watched. The streets may not be empty. The buildings may hold more than dust and decay, and the spirits may not let you leave. Thank you for walking these haunted hilltops with me tonight. Stay cautious, stay curious, and may the spirits of Virginia reveal only the shadows you are ready to face.